Good evening. This is the Walpole Zoning Board of Appeals. Tonight is Wednesday, March 20th.
You wish.
Monday. Yeah, we always are, Monday. We're always on Wednesdays usually. Monday, March 20th, it is 7 p.m. The first case we have tonight with the board, we have Judy Conroy, Drew Delaney, Bob Fitzgerald, Dave Anderson, Pat DeShanes from Community and Economic Development, and I'm John Lee. Okay, the first case we have is case number 22-4 for 140 Washington Street. This is the Clock Tower in East Walpole.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Dan American, Legacy Engineering. I submitted a letter. We are appearing before the Conservation Commission on Wednesday evening. So we would like to just continue this to your next available meeting. I'm hopeful that we are going to close with the Conservation Commission on Wednesday, and we will come back to you at your next available meeting and hopefully button things up there and bring this process to closure.
Okay, this has been going on as I look at the agenda for over a year now, and I think it's reasonable to, if not have a new public hearing start, at least renotice all the abutters. Is that something that you can do?
For this continuation?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. So we'll continue until the, Patrick, what's the next available that we have in April?
So that would be April 5th. That's obviously, if you're going to re-advertise, I don't think that's possible.
Do you want it re-advertised in the paper or just a butter notices?
Just, I think.
I can get the notices out tomorrow.
What's the feeling of the board? This has gone on for over a year. If you look at all the agenda items, this is the one hanging out from early of last year. Board members, what do you think?
I think the mailed notice is probably sufficient.
Okay.
I would agree with that.
Mailed notice to everybody 300 feet?
I kind of think we should advertise, just because people have called me and said they didn't get notices in the mail. So cover all the bases, put it in for 2 issues of the hometown and send out the letters.
Fine. Are you going to have another meeting in April?
So that would depend. So I know the board changed the schedule to kind of do once a month, and we have that auxiliary date, which is I guess for April it'd be the 24th, because I think the 18th is
That's school vacation week.
Yeah, 24th is school vacation week. All right, 17th I think we have, was that Patriots Day?
That's Patriots Day.
So,
Well, the 24th, I think, is okay.
24th is okay.
yeah, 24th was the date that I think we had as
Yeah.
the backup April date.
So,
It just, I guess it depends what the board wants to do.
yeah,
on
what
that.
you guys want to do for April 24th? Does that give enough time for notice?
So,
Should, right? It's 5 weeks.
yeah, no, it will.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd just say, if we've waited this long, is there any harm in just waiting till the next scheduled meeting instead of having a special meeting just for this case?
That
I
would
guess
put us.
It would be probably May 15th.
May 15th?
Yeah, another.
Because you still haven't wrapped up with Concom, right?
We're hoping to wrap it up on Wednesday.
Okay. Well, May 15th would be the next one.
Yeah, so May 15th, I think we only have one meeting scheduled for May, and that's May 15th.
Okay.
Yeah.
So can you renotice everybody within 300 feet for May 15th?
Yeah.
And it won't be a new hearing, but you're going to renotice them.
Right. I'm just going to notice then that there'll be another hearing. Right.
Okay.
Understood.
Put something in the paper. Is that what we wanted to do?
What's that?
You want to put something in the paper
Yeah.
as well? Okay.
That's why we've got the extra time. Okay. Could I have a motion to continue case number 22-4 until May 15th at the request of the applicant?
So moved.
Moved by Judy,
Second.
second by Drew. Any further discussion on that one?
Just want to say,
We need to do a different extension.
a different extension for the public hearing notice. So I think we expire on the 28th of this month, so we would need to set a date beyond the 15th.
Okay. And with an extension of time until June 1st.
Agreed.
Okay. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, so carried. Okay, so if anybody's here for the clock tower case, that is going to be continued until May 15th, and hopefully we'll make some progress on that. Okay. See, Mr. American, are you also here for case number 2311 for Pilot's Way?
I am.
Okay. What we're going to do is we're going to take this out of order for this one, just because we have, do we have all the parties here for Pilot's Way? Okay. So this is case number 2311, 7 Pilot's Way, requesting an administrative appeal of the building commissioner's issuance of a building permit, BR 22-304 at 11 Pilot Way for an in-ground pool on the grounds that the owner is in violation of Section 5D, excavation of filling of earth. So, this is brought by the neighbor who feels that the site next door has changed the grade of the lot with the building of a swimming pool. And Mr. Crowley, the building inspector, issued the building permit last year, and now the neighbors has appealed, saying that Mr. Crowley should not have issued that building permit because of the change in elevation in the grade around the pool. So the way this works, this is sort of unusual for a zoning board, but this is why you have a zoning board in your town. The neighbor has appealed to the zoning board of appeals, and now what we're going to hear is from Mr. Crowley, and then we'll hear from the aggrieved neighbor why they feel that this building permit, Mr. Crowley is going to explain why he believes he issued it correctly, and the neighbor can explain why they feel that it was not issued correctly. The zoning board is impartial on this, and we sit in judgment in this case. That's what the zoning board does. Okay. Do board members have any questions? Have you had a chance to review the file on this? Okay. It's also in your red folder if you have any questions. Okay. Mr. Crowley, do you want to come forward?
Party actually goes first.
Okay. 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 So is somebody representing 11's Pilot's Way?
11 or 7?
7's the
7 is the,
7. Yeah. With 7, yes.
Good evening, I'm Kathleen Watson of 7 Pilots Way.
Kevin Plunkett of 7 Pilots Way.
We are here for an administrative appeal, not for the issuance of the permit, but for the appeal of the resulting work we believe violates Section 5D, excavation or filling of earth, activities allowed, Part A.
So it allows a number of things, but I'll get to the point. There's a change in grade, and the grade is not allowed to be changed in excess of 1 foot, according to this Section 5D. The change of grade, if you can see from your photographs, comes very close to our property, and we think that it has the potential of causing water problems in our basement, and we would like this addressed while the project is still ongoing. Rather than waiting for a problem to actually happen, it should be addressed before, since they changed the grades.
I submitted some pictures, and picture number 1 is kind of funny, because if you look through the fence, it actually, you can see this little bit of snow cover shows the change of grade, which brings it up halfway to that 6-foot fence. And I know that's kind of hard to see. Picture number 2 shows the 4-foot chain link fence in the backyard and the grade around the pool, and that spills down to within inches of the 4-foot fence level in our yard, and it is a very steep grade, creating a channel of what could be water that flows into a lower, we're at a lower elevation. The third picture shows the same kind of picture, but it shows you on a side view of that same picture that number 2 is. And I submitted a 4th picture this morning, and as you can see, that's a 6-foot privacy fence that did service us well until this change of grade. And now that when the neighbors are walking around the backyard, we no longer have a 6-foot privacy fence. So those are the pictures I submitted as proof that there has been a significant change of grade, and the bylaw does say 1 foot.
Okay.
And there was also, on the letter we received from the building commissioner, that the 30-day appeal period had expired. But that, I don't believe, should cover this, because it cannot cover an issue that the work hadn't been finished within 30 days. So how could we, appeal something like that if we didn't know what the finished product was going to look like? And in fact, it's still not quite finished. So, and there was no plan on file. I did go to the building commissioner's office. I asked to see the plan. There was no plan. So I really can't predict what this is going to look like. So this is why we are appealing his decision. Anything else, Kevin? Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Board members, do you have any questions?
Not right now.
Okay, I have, no, you go ahead, Bob.
No, I was just curious if you know what the change in approximately, is it about 3 feet, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
And so when you went to the building department, they didn't have a set of plans that showed what the yard was like before, and so we don't have a starting reference point.
We do not, no.
Okay. And all we have is that there's been a change in elevation.
Correct.
And those are the pictures that you show.
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions from board members? Judy?
So there's no, I guess if you stood in your yard and looked to your neighbor's yard before this project started, were you below the fence?
We could not see anything
Couldn't
above
see.
the fence.
Could you say that your yard where the fence went in and their yard were equal?
No.
Or were they always above?
Yeah, it's a hill.
It's
So
a hill,
we're
but I mean-
like, the road is almost terraced.
Right.
So there's a house, and then there's a hillside, and then there's our house, and then a hillside, and then there's another house. So it's terraced up.
Okay.
So to be already at a higher elevation than we are had
Okay.
caused a problem in the past that we had to remediate. So now we predict that this is going to happen again, because it has happened in the past. And therefore, we decided we're going to be proactive this time and see if we can have this adjusted before everything is complete, and then we don't have to worry about anything in the future. The other thing that I was told when I went to the building department, and I asked, well, if we weren't notified because it was by right, and there were no plans for us to look at, what happens when there's water in our basement? And I was told it was going to be a civil matter. So I was basically told I'd have to go to court if something happens. And I think it could be fixed before then. We don't have to go that far.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
No, I've got a
Okay,
question.
okay,
You talked
sure.
about a problem that happened in the past. What is the problem that happened in the past?
I'm gonna know how many decades. There was some movement of earth in the yard where there was a basketball court, an asphalt basketball court that was put in a part of the property, and the land was moved, I believe at that point, by the homeowners, and it was not graded properly, and we had a winter where it was very wet, and the water, it was cold, the water, and then we had rain, and the water moved across the land, down the side yard, and ended up in our basement. At that point, I had Matt's Landscaping come and kind of make a swale from our house to pitch the land away from our house, but you only can do that so much. then I had to have a wall built, and I created a swale, and I did a backfill and a fence and planting, so that, we've already done that once.
And that's the problem you're trying to avoid?
Correct.
Okay.
The land has always been contoured towards your property?
The land, when the houses were first put in, we had no issues with water whatsoever. And then this other project
I
was done.
apologize, I don't know the
Okay.
elevation of where your property in relation to the neighbors, but are you lower or higher than your neighbor?
We are lower than the neighbor, and in the file that was put digitally, there are 2 pictures of the street at the base of our driveway, number 7, and it shows how the hill goes up, and then it shows another picture of from across the street where our house is and their house is. So I'm going to say the difference is 6 feet, 7 feet,
I'd say 6 feet, yeah.
6 feet.
So there's always been a gradual decline towards your property?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
But now it's more severe, and it's closer to our property line.
It's within inches.
Okay, so he built up the berm, so now
the
he's
property
higher.
went like this, now it goes like that.
Mhm.
Any other questions for the residents of 7 Pilots Way? Okay. Now, we can hear from the building inspector.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jim Crowley, Building Commissioner. The project at 11 Pilots Way was issued a permit in August of last year to build a 20-foot by 45-foot swimming pool. As long as they meet all the criteria and the zoning setbacks and the size and the placement, it is what's called an as-of-right project, which means if you meet all the criteria, there is no special permit required. It's a building permit as of right, whether it's a swimming pool, accessory structure like a garage, a pool house, or a shed. If it's allowed as of right, there is no notification to any of the neighbours required anywhere. On this case, Ms. Watson is citing that it shouldn't been approved under 5D, which is under 5D 3A, which does state that no permit shall be required for excavations that's under 100 cubic yards. That is part of one of section 5D. The other section is of 5D 3C, which says excavation or fill incidental to the construction of residential buildings for which all other permits have been issued, which we have issued a permit for the pool, or installation of walkways, driveways, septic systems, swimming pools, or other accessory uses to such buildings and exceptions thereto, provided the quantity of material removed shall not exceed the required to adequately install all permitted site features. So when it comes to the likes of a swimming pool, the site features are swimming pool plus a deck. So everybody puts a pool deck around their property. So the movement of earth is incidental to the primary, which is the swimming pool. So you are allowed to move some substantial soil around as long as it pertains to the project you're doing. In this case, a swimming pool. It also goes on to in 5D section 4, under the provisions requiring a special permit, does state that any activity over 100 cubic yards of earth or more per year, except those listed in 5D 3C, which I just listed, which are, again, driveways, walkways, septic systems, swimming pools. So that's the way our zoning is written, is that if it's a house, swimming pool, and you have to move earth around the property that's incidental to the primary project, it is allowed as of right without a special permit. If you were to come back and say, if you were to plot a land that you built a residential home on and came back 10 years later and decided to clear your backyard lot and level the land, this would trigger this over 100 cubic yards, which we had previous cases before this board. The latest one was up at Briarwood, if you remember. Mr. Delaney came in, his house was built, he had a backyard, he decided to level more of his backyard, it did trigger this. In this case, it does not trigger because it's tied in with the building permit of the pool. And as for the appeal period of a pool, it was put in and started in August. The pool has been put in. It's been substantial time. Ms. Watson did say, well, we can't get to the end and then decide whether we like it or not. It's a huge expense to any owner or any property owner that you can't wait till the project's finished at the end to object to it. That's why there is a timetable on building permits, and that's why there is actually a case, Wolf, that goes on to say that you're notified by construction. So once the construction started, that's when you have to appeal it. This was waited till right now. The pool is in, the ground is in, has been put back. There's still work to be done. They still have to put the pool deck in. The owners, I believe we talked to them, are waiting till the good weather kicks in again, the ground thaws out so they can finish it off. They've also taken the extra steps of hiring Mr. American. They're going to add in a retaining wall to divert and drainage system to divert the water and any runoff from their property towards the front of the property with the lay of the land, which I'll let Mr. American speak to that. He's more initials after his name than I do, so he is more adept. As for the permit online, we do have permit and we do have a plan for the pool, and we also do have a topography of the land as well. So we do have a site plan that shows on the topography. I can produce the board with a copy.
Thank you.
Might have not met enough.
You can
Might
share.
have to share. So I was looking at this project. This is what was proposed, and what is happening is we do have a pool 20 foot by 45 feet that is almost 18 feet away from the neighbour and 17.1 feet from the rear, which is kept back substantially, which in Walpole, our setbacks for pool in any project is allowed actually to go to within 6 feet of the neighbour's property, front or side and rear. As you can see in this project, the topography of the land starts on the left-hand side at 107, and by the time it gets to the centre of the property before the pool begins, you're down to roughly 104, 103. From the beginning of the pool and at the rear of the pool, it stays around 103, and as it slopes towards the land, it's going to 102 and 101. They have kept the grade with the original grade of 103, 18 feet away from the land. So there's roughly a 2 foot grade difference from where the pool started to where it ends on their property, is about a 2 foot grade. The substantial grade change is actually to the front of the property, which is not affected by the pool. And as you can see, at the back of the house is at 102, and by the time it gets to the front of the house is at 92. So there's a 10 foot drop to the front of the house. That if you go up Pilot's Way, it is a terraced road. You actually are rising pretty steeply. From the top of the road back down to the bottom of the road, it does drop off dramatically. And each house is tiered, that where the residents at 11 Pilot's Way, I would say their first floor, our basement level at the first floor level is actually in line with Miss Watson's top of her first floor to second floor level. So there is a dramatic drop on the front of the property, and her house is down in a swell. But as you can see from the grade change here, again on the rear of the property where the pool is being put in, there is literally from the beginning of the pool to the property line, it goes from 103 to 101. So it's a 2 foot train grade. The owners at 11 Pilot's Way, more than likely it's 50%. It is 8 feet off the fence, at some parts down to probably 6 feet off the fence, where it does pitch down to their property, so it's dropping down about 2 feet max on the property. And that's where Mr. American's coming in. They have hired him to put a retaining wall in there and drainage system, running all the water and any runoff out towards the front of the property and away from the neighbour's property.
Okay. So, you've defended your position of issuing the building permit,
I think.
but now, let's hear from Mr. American. You're involved with this now, trying to solve this problem?
Well, I agree with the building inspector that the activity that's in question is exempt from 5D. But aside from that, the property owner at 11 Pilots has hired me to try to help him address the concerns of his neighbor with respect to grading and drainage. So we're going to be working with the owner of 11 Pilots Way to make every reasonable effort to address those concerns.
Do you have a plan? Have you already put together a plan?
No,
for
not
this?
yet. No, but I have been out there, and I looked at it, and I do agree with the building inspector about his description of everything. It's about a 2-foot fill. They basically took a backyard area that was sloped slightly. When they excavated the pool, they created a level pad around the pool. They didn't raise it up above, the grade of the backyard. They basically created a level pad area around the pool, as you have to do. And that's what created that roughly 2-foot change on the downslope side.
So, yeah, Judy, do you have a question?
When were these topography lines taken?
That's
On this.
That's the prior to
Prior
construction, I
to?
believe.
So, Mr. Crowley just said there was a 2-foot drop. You just said there was another 2-foot drop, so 2 and 2 to me is 4.
No, I'm agreeing with his description.
I understand.
The 103 to 101 is the 2-foot change. Closer to the property line, it was around
Okay.
elevation 101, and
Yep.
then when they built the pool at elevation 103, plus or minus, they raised that side around the pool to that elevation, the 2 feet.
Okay, so right now, the pool's in,
Correct.
the decking is not down,
Not yet.
the stamped concrete or whatever they're gonna do is not down.
Right.
So that's more impervious.
No, they're actually reducing impervious coverage. They had an asphalt sport court on the
I
property.
see that. That's coming
Which has
out.
been removed. So there's actually been a reduction in impervious coverage, which means at the end of the day, there'll be a reduction in runoff.
Okay, I'm just talking about around the pool.
Then you
There's
put-
going to be a patio around
Yes,
the
I've
pool,
talked
which could be
to
anywhere from 4
the owners
to
of
6
Pilot's
feet.
Way. They're actually not going, so some people pour a concrete pad for
Mm-hmm.
pool curbing. They're not, they're going with pavers with specialized grout that's going to be porous. So it's going to actually be, it's not going to be pervious, it's actually going to be pervious, not impervious surface.
Okay, so even if on the end towards 7 Pilots Way, they put a 5-foot lovely draining type of patio, you're going out, so 17-foot 9. Now you're going to be, the patio's closer, which is going to create some kind of retaining wall within that.
Well, no, what
Amount
there
of
will be
feet?
is there'll be a deck, a patio around that end of the pool, which will not be 18 feet wide. It will be maybe 8 or 10 feet wide.
That's what I mean,
And
yeah.
then there'll be another 8 feet of landscaping between the edge of the pool patio and the property line. And that's the area where, I mean, honestly, my view is that the slope is not substantial, but the owner of 11 Pilots is thinking that a wall is a good idea, and I don't disagree. It will level that whole area off, which will decrease runoff. And we're also working with them on a little drainage system, underground drainage, and diverting drainage away from the neighbor's house. So those are all things that we are working with the owner of 11 Pilots Way on.
Okay, so you're going to do all that, and the people at 7 Pilots Way have a 6-foot fence. Are they going to have a privacy fence when you're done? Is that 6-foot fence that they already put in going to be adequate enough to give them privacy?
You can't
Up
have
towards
a
11.
fence more than 6 feet tall on the property.
That's not what I asked you, Dan. Will the
Well-
fence that exists, as they have it now, which they intended it to be a privacy fence, will it give them the privacy they wanted when they first put the fence in?
I believe so. When I was in the backyard of 11th Pilots Way, I could not see over that fence into their house. I mean, I could see their second floor, obviously, but their house sits down.
I know.
So when I'm in the
I
back
went and
of
looked.
11 Pilots and I see the 6-foot fence that goes a portion of the way, I can't see into their yard. I had to go around the fence and look to see what was going on in 7 Pilots Way.
So unless they Photoshop themselves in this picture she just gave us, which I don't think they did, what I'm asking is, once you're done with this retaining wall and decking, are they going to have a 6-foot privacy fence?
Yeah, the
It
fence
sounds
is-
like the pool's already there.
The fence is not going to change. Are they going to see some activity in the backyard? They might. The backyard at 11 Pilots Way is several feet higher, and in some places 10 or 15 feet higher than the yard at 7 Pilots Way. So obviously they're going to, in certain circumstances and certain vantage points, they're going to see activity, yeah. Same the other way around. The whole road is sloping downhill. Every property
aware.
can
I've
see
been on
into the next
Pilot's
one
Way
to some
since-
degree from certain vantage points.
Okay, I'm just, again, when you're done with all your fancy retaining walls,
It's just going to be like a 18-inch tall retaining wall. It's
whatever,
nothing-
okay.
Nothing crazy.
I just want to know if the neighbors at 7, if their privacy fence is going to afford them the privacy they desired, or do they need to consider a variance for a bigger fence? I'm just throwing that out there. You're going through a lot to try to fix something, and it might
don't
not be
think so,
fixed very
but-
well.
I don't think so, but
All right.
matter of opinion.
Okay, so you're going to work on plans to control the drainage and the water, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And what I'm trying to figure out right now is, how do we solve this? How do we solve this problem for the neighbors of 11's Pilot's Way that want to have their pool, and the people at 7's Pilot's Way that don't want water in their basement? Is there a way that you can design something to divert the water from the backyard around the pool so that it moves away from the basement of 7 Pilot's Way?
Yeah.
Okay. So the next question is, how do we make that a condition? And I'm asking, the building inspector also and board members, because we don't do cases like this too often. How do we make it so that when we walk out of this meeting, whether it's today or in the future, because we don't have to close this tonight, that we have a plan that says, this is what's going to happen, and we believe, the best of your engineering knowledge, that it will not allow water into the house over at 7 Pilot's Way. How do we make that happen? And Patrick, I'm willing to have you
No, I mean-
put in on this.
It's a difficult, because really, you're looking at the building commissioner's, I guess, view of section 5D, and whether you feel that the inaction was appropriate or wasn't appropriate. So that's really the crux of what the board is deciding on. The matter between neighbors, you can't condition a denial, or you can't, so it's really, you're mostly looking at that one issue and determining whether the building commissioner, made the right call by not making the call, or made the wrong call by, I guess, allowing it to happen by right. And so the referenced section that the building commissioner is looking at is activities allowed. So
Yeah, I looked at that
Yeah,
too.
so, I mean, that's-
And what I'm trying to do is probably maybe even overstep, and I shouldn't, we should just, maybe just deal with what's before the zoning board. But, I'm trying to figure out, is there a way that we can solve this tonight to everybody's satisfaction? Because it seems like the neighbors at 11 Pilot's Way are willing to try to, engineer a solution. That's why they brought you in, right, Dan?
Yeah, within reason.
Yeah, I mean,
I think, Mr. Chair, I think we don't have to rule on the appeal tonight, and if it's since there are some steps in the direction of addressing the water issue with the retaining wall, it might make sense for the neighbors to have the opportunity to continue the dialogue. Before, if they can't reach an agreement, then we can certainly issue a decision based on that. But I don't think we can, as Patrick's saying, impose conditions on a decision on what's essentially purely a legal question, whether the determination under 5D was correct or not. But that doesn't prevent the neighbors from further dialogue to resolve the issue.
I guess my point, Mr. Chair, is I think that's all, it's wonderful. I think if the neighbors can work, I just think from the board's authority on this, I don't know if that's really within the scope of what we're looking at. I think we're just really looking at the building commissioners in action and making a judgment call on that.
but the the building if we find that the building inspector did it incorrectly, then that opens up,
So
an issue. Where the question is, can this get resolved and then everybody moves on happily? And I think, Bob, what you're saying is, we don't have to make a decision tonight. We can continue this. You can come up with your plan, see if that
Yeah.
is something that is workable, and then we can go from there.
I understand that you'd be happier if everyone was happy. As happy as everyone can be.
We're a zoning board. We're not used to having everybody happy.
So, fine, I mean, if you want to continue this to May 15th, where I'll be here again tonight anyways,
Actually, we don't need you to be here. We need a plan
Understood, but,
and to be here.
you know, the owner of 11 will engage me to prepare something, and hopefully that something is satisfactory to the owners of 7, and if it is, then they can come here and say, yeah, we're all set. Maybe they're not. I don't know that we can satisfy the owners of 7 Pilots Way, but I think that my clients are willing to try within reason.
And if I might, respectfully, I don't think we need a plan the next time, because it's either going to be resolved by the neighbors and the appeal withdrawn on that basis, or it's not going to be. They haven't reached agreement, and then we just have to rule on the question. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no,
How it's engineered is not really what we're
yeah,
reviewing.
I think Ms. Conroy has a.
So we're supposed to decide if Mr. Crowley made the right decision based on the appeal that was kind of late in the game by the people at 7 Pilots Way. Are we under any time constraint to make this decision? Where 30 days, 60 days, anything? It's not like a hearing, okay?
30 days the open, so that's just the difference with an
well-
appeal. When the, I guess the
Different
appealee
appeal.
appeals, then we have 30 days to open the hearing, which is a little bit different, but that's the only.
but we've opened the hearing. We can continue it.
okay,
Yeah.
so
These
that was part
These can
one.
continue for a long time. I don't want that to happen.
No.
I want this to get resolved.
Okay, so there is some time frame to deal with. Okay, so someone explain, Patrick,
No.
what's the upside to being, agreeing with Mr. Crowley, and then the downside for disagreeing with Mr. Crowley?
So, I guess the downside of disagreeing with Mr. Corelli is that you're opening yourself up to looking at, you're interpreting the bylaw, I guess. I'm describing.
Yeah, so the downside is if it's interpreted, so there's two interpretations, either Miss Watson's or my interpretation of it. If you interpret the way Miss Watson is, basically any pool, addition, new house, anything that touches total 150 cubic, or 100 cubic yards, or one grade in the entire town of Walpole has to come before this board for a special permit, which means every house, swimming pool that's been done in the last 20 years is a violation of our zoning, which, again, I don't believe is. And I believe I've shown that with the conditions here, the way 5D is written, it states in section C, this does not trigger it. It also states in the requirements for a special permit does not trigger it. Which means every single project in this town can be appealed to the zoning board for a special permit. Extending, not making a decision, we can extend it, but you're also at, right now, the owners of 11 Pilots Way have hired Miss American out of their own pocket for something that's not required by zoning. So they're spending their own money for extra to appease the neighbour, that we can't really put out a condition of that stating we're going to delay this project on till they come up, because if the owners decide, well, we've ran out of money, we're just going to do the pool and leave it at that, that is their right. We're here basically on the crux of what does of Miss Watson's appeal under 5D, 3A, my apologies, under 3A, that our department issued a permit in error, and that we were not looking at 5D as right. That's where I'm trying to show that we did look at 5D, it does not pertain to this, and the owners of 11 Pilots Way have the right to continue with their project without a further expense, even though they are spending the money, because this is the way our zoning has been written, it's the way it's been enforced by my predecessor, and predecessors prior to me. Agreeing, again, it's up to you which way you want to go, but if you do agree with me, perfect. If you agree with Ms. Watson, then it opens the door up that literally if you do anything in your backyard, you're coming before the zoning board.
Excuse me, Chairman, I have a question for both. How many times have we required people to put a special permit in for a swimming pool in your tenure?
0.
I've never seen it.
Is the land that's currently out there right now stabilized? This has been in
Yeah.
since August?
It's gravel. I don't see any evidence of erosion.
You said you walked it?
I did
How long ago?
this weekend.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
I did have one more question for Mr. Crowley. Upon the completion of the pool project, you have to do a final inspection.
Yes, you do a final inspection, and we also get a final as-built to show that the pool was placed where we give them permission that it doesn't violate any of our setbacks or zoning.
Okay. Do we have any way to addend that if your drainage project is not completed, that they do not get their certificate of completion? No?
So when we do a final closeout on a pool project like this, it has to be finished as if they decided to move out and sell their house tomorrow. The project has to be fully done. Putting a condition about the drainage in, again, that's a violation of the law because there is no condition that's required for that. That's, again, like, we could request that the neighbour should be allowed to build a 10-foot fence for privacy. We can't enforce that because that's a violation, that's a zoning violation as well. So putting a condition in that they have to do the drainage will violate the zoning law.
Okay, can the people at 11 that put the pool in, can they reapply for the pool permit, even though it's already built, and include the drainage you're talking about? And
If
that
they
would be
choose to go down
considered-
that road and spend that money, that's up to the owner, but right now, there's no requirement for it. They are working
Right.
with Mr. American, and they have stated they are going to do it out their own pocket, but I'm here for what I can enforce and what the zoning is. I can't add conditions on just for to keep, unfortunately, in our department, no one likes us. I can't try and appease everybody because I'm going to lose no matter which way. I can only go where we have consistently been doing this since I've been here 4 years. My predecessor has been here twice. And then you have Dave Norton prior to that. And in all the 10 years that we've been here, going back to 2012, 13 that I've looked up with permits, no special permit or anything has ever been issued for a pool.
Okay, well, I guess what I'm just saying is if they reapplied, I don't know what it costs. You're gonna review the plan. The plan will include the drainage wall and the drainage swales and the piping going down towards the street. And then when you inspect and you see that it's done, everybody might be happy.
I'm the owner, can I speak?
It's up to the chairman, sir.
My name's Dan Shea, I'm at 11 Pilots Way, the owner. You know, I've spent a lot of money and we're doing everything we can to address the concerns. I mean, this is, we get the permit, we put the pool in, it costs a lot of money. I took out a paved concrete, a paved and asphalt basketball court. I spent more money on a paved, I signed up the landscaper, I put a down payment, I retained Mr. Merrigan at extra expense. I'm putting a retaining wall at extra expense because it's, instead of having a slope, it's gonna help with drainage, with gravel base. I'm talking to a special civil engineer and a landscaper, and we're working on those plans. I mean, I don't know how much more I can do. I'm putting a privacy fence because I want privacy for my neighbors who like to appeal everything that I've done. Rightfully, you know, I've done everything right. I'm spending a lot of money on that I don't need to spend, from what I'm hearing from the landscaper and the civil engineer and the building commissioner, and yet I'm being made out to be the bad guy, and you want to postpone this, you know, now you're going to put the landscaper off even more. Who's ready to go? I'm going to lose them. Yeah, and I may not get it in this year. I couldn't have it done last year because it was the end of the season. I couldn't get them out there at the pool contractor until the end of the season, and then it was too late to do the patio. And they have to wait for the winter. Now the spring's here, everybody's ready to go, and now we're talking about putting this off even more. I mean, to me, it's a clear-cut case. I mean, either it falls on the 5D or it doesn't. It seems pretty clear that it doesn't. Why don't you just rule that, it seems to me that it should be approved, the permit was approved, the appeal is no good. I'm still gonna go forward and do the right thing. I've given a down payment to Mr. Merrigan. a retainer. That's the plan. I'm still going to do everything that I can do to make this right, to address my neighbor's concerns, but I'm not going to do anything unreasonable, and I think this is unfair to me to put this off and to make conditions on my approval of a pool that's already been put in. Okay, any questions?
Drew?
To that comment, I have a question for Mr. Merkin regarding the comments made by 11 Pilots Way. Adding the apron and starting the landscaping, would that further stabilize the land that could potentially wash out?
Yes.
Thank you.
Dave?
If I may. And we could go around and around and around with this all night long. The reality is, the engineer, no one, the building commissioner, no one has said that there is unstabilized land or anything has been done wrong, et cetera, et cetera. And as unfortunate, as uncomfortable as it may be for people, there are other avenues that people can take outside of zoning board of appeals to address these situations that are not in this room. And I do think that as a board, we should just hold directly to the thing before us, which is whether or not he made the right interpretation of 5D. Otherwise, we're gonna get caught in all of this noise that we really don't have the authority to comment on, in my opinion.
You know, in your opinion, I think you're right. And I'm trying to figure out a way to make it so that, you know, everybody gets what they want. But really, the issue before the zoning board right now is, did the building commissioner issue a building permit correctly? And I think that's what we have to look at. And take a step away from if there's going to be engineering done. The question is, was that done correctly? And what are board members' feelings on that question? Because that's what's been appealed to us.
So I would start in saying that I feel that his interpretation of 5D was correct, and my understanding is not even so much the issuance of the building permit, but through the construction and the removal of earth being allowed in certain scenarios within that code for unintentional earth needing to be moved when you actually start construction to exceed or not exceed the numbers outlined in the code. And I do think that the commissioner made a great point. I mean, when you start digging a hole and you start building houses and you start getting into the earth, like, lots of different things can happen, which is why that code probably exists, to allow for potentially additional reasonable unintentional earth to be moved. And I think that was the intention of the code. I think his interpretation was correct, and I would be inclined to agree with him.
Other board members?
I would agree. I think this is incidental to the other primary uses.
Bob?
Yeah, no, my suggestion of further discussion was only if the parties were willing to have that discussion, but it sounds like that's not going to happen. So I think the only question in my mind under 5DC is there's a reference at the end to the amount adequately install all permitted site features, and whether the extent of the filling around the pool is sort of, I guess in your judgment, all that's necessary? I mean, or if it's more than what was required to fill in the pool, or?
Yeah, so that's the gray area of our zone, is it's install all permitted site features.
Right.
So a pool deck is required by code
Okay.
to a certain size. How big you want to go with that pool deck, again, is up to the owner.
Yeah.
They are using pavers that are pervious, so most pools we've dealt with do pour a concrete slab that tie into the apron of the pool. The owners in Pilots Way are actually going with a paving system,
Yeah.
which would be more pervious and control the water better than causing it to run off into the neighbours as well. So they are taking extra steps on top of what is allowed to try and appease the neighbour. But in this, the way I interpret it, and again my predecessors interpreted, it adequate installs all permitted site features. So when you do a pool, you're doing landscaping around it, and you're also doing a pool deck. Same with site features for, again, it does state in section C that it's walkways, driveways, swimming pools, or other accessory uses. So a two-bay garage is an accessory use. So if they were to install a two-bay garage there, you're going to level up all the grass. You have to, within 6 feet of a house or accessory structure or building, you have to pitch the land away by code. So that's part of that. if you're putting a driveway in there, that's part of the accessories you need for that use. With a pool, the use is the deck. To Mr. Watson's picture that he showed Mr. American of the fence that's looking extremely high and private, just to give you some depiction, that fence is towards the front of the house, and as you can see from the plan I submitted for the site plan, that front of the house drops off nearly 10 feet. So it's kind of your perspective is wherever you stand and look from, it looks extremely high in one part and then extremely low in another part. The mesh fence you see with the leaves at it, that's at the rear of the property, which is only a 4-foot fence, as where the picket fence starts midway down and goes to the front of the home, and then there's no fence on the front of the property. And that picture is showing it from, being honest, you're standing probably 6 feet down, looking back up towards the property. And that's the case. The back of the property doesn't drop off as dramatically as the front does. And that's what's deceiving with this property too.
Judy, do you have anything?
No, I agree with the incidental use. I know there's questions on this bylaw. Did the planning board, on the article, you pulled it back? They pulled it back?
Yeah,
Particular
because again,
articles going to be looked at?
Needs
Yeah.
some work.
Yes, it does.
because it's such, right now, it is a hot
It's a
topic.
little
'Cause
hot topic.
again, we say, where do you draw the line for how far back? So that's why we have people who build a house, do their backyard and still have another half an acre of land, and they leave it with trees on it. Either they like the trees, or you don't want to chop down 20 trees, this is going to cost you $20,000, $30,000. Future then down the line, like again, as I said, up in Briarwood, you decide to level your yard, then that's a triggering, because that's the primary you're doing, is you are leveling the land, you are moving the land. And that's what's different to doing just leveling land and moving land where it's tied into a project.
Okay. We've got somebody in the audience. Is that Mr. O'Leary? Do you want to say something?
John O'Leary, 776 Washington Street. I don't have my copy of the bylaws with me tonight, but beyond what's been said about 5D, I believe there's an element in there discussing the change in grade, which hasn't been addressed yet. Beyond how much land can be taken out, I thought there was a limit as to how much of a grade change can be made without requiring special permits, like I thought it was 1 foot. So I'm not sure, I haven't seen the plans, but that may be an element for the board to determine whether the decision has been made properly or not. Thank you.
So that actually, to Mr. O'Leary's point, that is 5D3A. That's when it goes over anything under, this is allowed activities, anything under 100 cubic yards, anything under 1 foot grade change. But again, that's, I guess the interpretation is that is for soil removal or gravel removal as it relates to a primary use, whereas the argument is that the pool, even if it may be more than a foot of grade change, its argument is that it's an incidental use.
And that's section C, talking about incidental.
Yeah, that's section 3C, or 5D3C.
So, Mr. O'Leary, thank you for pointing that out. But, okay, Mr. Plunkett.
What Mr. O'Leary pointed out was from 5D3, Section A.
Yep.
The
we had-
last, which says that at no point shall the change in grade exceed 1 foot. And the photos that we've shown show that it is 3 feet. There's a 3-foot change in grade. That's what we are here about. It's not about all this other stuff that has been brought in. We think that because there is a violation under this bylaw, that something needs to be addressed that would eliminate the issue of having water come into our basement. I'm fully on board with an engineered plan, but to do nothing throws this into oblivion. And there was just a meeting of the planning board in which this part of the of A was removed, and they sent that back to committee to be reworked, because it was the board's feeling that if you have to have a grade change in this part of the bylaw for just this reason. Okay.
So, one of the things with zoning, we have to look at not just individual words in it, because if you look at the beginning of that paragraph, which is paragraph A, it talks about excavation or filling operations. That's what this is about. That's what that section. Section A is not about swimming pools or incidental uses or other sidewalks, driveways, any of that. That is about excavation or filling operations. Do other board members
Agreed.
see it?
That's correct.
Okay. So, Mr. Plunkett, I definitely, and I understand exactly what you're saying, but you have to look at the beginning of that paragraph where it says, this is for excavation or filling operations. And that's going back to when people were operating sand pits and doing earth removal in
It
town.
mentions residential use in that same paragraph.
And we had one at this board, it was a residential use where he was changing the grade in the yard. You can do that in residential areas to change the grade in your yard. So it's not, we have to then look at paragraph C, which is talking about the, construction of residential buildings or other things such as walkways, driveways, and swimming pools. So I think it's pretty clear that the piece that you're talking about is not about a swimming pool in a residential area. That is about a excavation or filling operation. Buddy?
Great.
Board members?
I think because C specifically addresses swimming pools, that it's the controlling section rather than A as well.
Okay. Okay. Anything else? Does anybody else? Yes, Ms. Watson.
I have one more thing well, two things to say, but they're just not worth, this whole by right business, I don't like it, number one. And number two is the pool was left above grade. It wasn't in the corner where we are discussing. The pool was not in grade. It was left above grade. So all that was packed up around it to make the pool, I'm going to call it apron level. And this whole meeting could have been avoided if when I went to the building commissioner and I asked for the plan and I was told there was no plan, and yet you got a plan. So I'm curious as to why if I had seen the plan and looked at the plan, all of this could have been avoided because I would have looked at it, I would have asked some questions, and it wouldn't have gone this far. So I appreciate your time.
want a
Thank
copy
you
of
very
the plan?
much. Yes, I would like a copy, please. Thank you.
Okay. Does anybody have anything else on this case? Okay. Board members, are you ready to vote on this? Okay. So this, the issue is, I got, you know what?
Yeah, I mean-
You ready? Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to deny the administrative appeal regarding the building commissioner's issuance.
Chair.
Building.
You actually, you have to close the public hearing first.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Anybody have anything else to add at this point? Okay. So, does the applicant, Ms. Watson, Mr. Plunkett, do you want to close this hearing?
Why are we being asked to close the hearing?
Because we've heard, I think the board has heard enough.
Vote?
Yeah, we're going to vote, I think we're going to vote. I'm not think, if we close the public hearing, we will vote on it tonight and move on. If there's something else that you feel,
We'll close the hearing.
okay. You don't have to close the hearing. If you feel there's something else that you want to introduce as evidence, you can do that.
was introduced as evidence.
Okay. Okay, so do you want to close the hearing?
Yes.
Okay. So, at the request of the applicant, could I have a motion to close hearing, or case number 23-11?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Judy, second by Drew. Any further discussion? And this is just to close the hearing. All those in favor of closing the hearing, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. And voting on this will be the 5 regular members tonight. Okay. So, Drew, now do you want to make your motion?
I'd like to make a motion to deny the administrative appeal regarding the building commissioner's issuance of building permit BR-22-304 at 11 Pilots Way for an in-ground pool on the grounds that the owner is in violation of Section 5D, excavation of filling of earth.
Okay. Motion made by Drew. Does somebody want to second that?
Second.
Second by Dave. Any further discussion? Okay. Okay. So at this point, a motion has been made to deny the administrative appeal. So that would mean that the building commissioner's permit would stay in place. Okay. So this is a motion to deny the appeal. All those in favor of denying the appeal, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained? So carried. Okay, so the board denies the administrative appeal on that project. Okay. Next case we have this evening is case number 23-3, 1549 Washington Street, special permit under section 9.3 of the Walpole zoning bylaws in order to demolish a pre-existing non-conforming two-family dwelling and construct a new two-family dwelling within Residence A of the zoning district. Notice was published in the local paper. Notice is hereby given that the Board of Appeals, Town of Walpole, will hold a public hearing in the main meeting room, Town Hall, on Monday, March 20th at 7 p.m. on an application from John Walsh, case number 23-3, with respect to property located at 1549 Washington Street within the Residence A zoning district. Application is for a special permit under section 9.3 of the Walpole zoning bylaws in order to demolish a pre-existing non-conforming two-family dwelling and construct a new two-family dwelling. All are invited and encouraged to review the plans prior to the public hearing. So, okay. So we have the plans in front of us. Is the applicant here?
He is, Mr. Chair. Good evening, Brian Almeida for the applicant, and Mr. Walsh is right here next to me.
Okay. Do you want to explain what you're proposing to do?
So I recently purchased the existing two-family at 1549 Washington Street. It's quite an old building, I believe built in the 1800s. It's kind of seen its existing life. My proposal is to demolish the existing building and build a new two-family in its place. The current building is it's a two-story. I propose a side-by-side. We've taken into consideration drainage. We've installed a recharge. We're going to be installing a recharge system. We'd like to have the property face off of Stonehill Terrace instead of the existing Washington Street. I've heard from town engineer that there may be concerns as far as address. I do not want to cause any harm to the neighbors as far as changing their address, so I'm open to options or exploring options as to how we can solve that matter. I do have my engineer wasn't able to make it with us tonight, but I did bring a sketch that I created since I heard Carl's remarks on Thursday.
Okay. So, right now, this is a Washington Street address, is that correct?
Yes.
In the front?
1549.
Right, and the frontage is on Washington Street.
Currently, yes.
Okay. And So, I understand tearing down the house, I understand building a new one. What's the issue about the address? Why not just keep it as a Washington Street address?
Well, in Carl's comments, he had brought up that the fire department typically likes to see the front doors facing the address of the street that it faces. Since speaking to Carl about it and talking to the fire department didn't actually raise that concern, but I don't want it to go unnoted because I don't want anything, I don't want anything to happen to the neighbors or their addresses because that would be probably a pain for them.
Okay.
I have some sheets, if you'd like to see them, as what I'm proposing, if that's the case, if the neighbors were to have to change their addresses due to my plan.
Well, it's not if the neighbors are gonna change the addresses, because that goes all the way, that's an issue with the assessors, and I would even think that for the neighbors, that's gonna be an issue with the registry of deeds for their property.
Right.
So, that's not something that, I don't even know how the zoning board would get involved with that. If you have a piece of property and you want to tear it down and build something new, you know, we can discuss that, but we're not going to start discussing changing addresses. That's not what.
And I'm agreeing with you.
What we do,
Yeah.
Okay. So, explain what, I guess. Explain
My
what-
point is, I got comments from the engineering department just on Thursday before the hearing, so I've had to make changes to this plan. My engineer's currently on vacation, but when he returns, I'm gonna have him, redraw. But I wanted to put my vague changes in front of you just to see that we were on the same page.
Okay, well, it sounds like you're going to submit another set of plans anyways, right?
It's very similar, just the face of one of the units gets turned to avoid any address changes.
Okay.
I made one for each of you. What this does is it just allows me to change the face of the front doors. There are 2 existing curb cuts to the property, and I would just reuse the existing curb cuts on this
And those
amended plan.
Those curb cuts are
They're on that plan, yes.
on Stone Hill.
There's one on Washington and the other's on Stonehill.
Okay. But this plan shows 2 on Stone Hill now.
Well, you have to look at the changes to the units are in red, so, I don't have access to the engineer's drawing, so it's pretty basic, but.
But you propose to retain the curb cuts along Stonehill also?
Yes.
Okay.
So, just real quick, so, just to be clear, because I'm a little confused, I mean, I understand, so, are you proposing to do this, or the one that's before us?
The one that is before you, comments were raised just last Thursday, and I just wanted to get ahead of the situation, especially where the neighbors might fear that I would try and change their address, and it's not what I want.
Okay.
How soon could you get a stamped plan with your rendition?
Before the next meeting, my engineer will be back tonight.
Okay.
Is your point you want to?
Yeah, I don't know why, yeah. I don't know.
Okay. Okay. So, we've opened the hearing. I will say, are there people here to speak on this? Okay, so because people are here, we'll, and the applicant has introduced the plan. But what we are going to do tonight, we are going to continue it because you're going to submit a revised plan. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. But because you're here, why don't you come on up, come up one at a time, introduce yourself, name and address, and whether you support it, you have concerns, or whatever you want to say about the project.
If I could, Mr. Chairman, just, there was one other comment that the project might require a special permit under the Section 12(3)C. I think you should address that.
I'm waiting for an abutters list, so I'm going to have to start the process over just
Okay,
for that.
just wanted to make sure
aspect.
you were there. Okay, thanks.
So you're going to have to renotice for that 15% impervious?
Yep, so we have spoken to the applicant about that, so he would have to renotice, re-advertise, looking at the schedule, I mean, like the May 15th date would probably be the most applicable.
Okay,
Hi,
good
sir.
evening.
I'm Mark Aruda. I live at 1541 Washington Street. This construction he's doing is, my driveway's facing Stonehill Terrace. I just have a few questions. The house 1549 is gas, as far as I know of. Now, they're supposed to connect to the existing sewer line that's gonna be on Stonehill. Now, are they shutting off the gas, and how is that gonna affect me for how long?
It's okay. Yep. So the way it works in a public, you've raised a good question, and I don't have that answer. So I'm going to ask the applicant or the applicant's counsel to answer that question.
So when we do a demolition, the gas company shuts the gas off only at my property line, so you'll be unaffected by it.
Okay.
And as far as the driveway, I'm currently, the proposed plan that you got in the mail had two driveways.
Yes,
Towards your driveway?
because here's the picture of the house.
Yeah.
It's gonna be supposed to be facing Stonehill.
Yes, so since I got comments from the engineering department last week, what I plan to do now is actually face this unit towards Washington Street and just this.
Does the board have a picture of this?
They do.
You guys see the picture of that?
Yeah.
Yes.
So now only one unit would face your home.
Because basically, I'm gonna get the
Okay,
brunt of all
you know
your
what?
construction. Because my driveway faces,
Excuse me, Gates, just you have to speak through the chair.
Yeah, so one of the things that I'm seeing right here, what would be very helpful is if maybe you had a meeting with some of the neighbors before you come back to the zoning board to, resolve some of these issues, because your questions are a very good question, but if you had met with the applicant, that probably could have been resolved, and maybe you wouldn't have to be here, or, it would have been resolved. So oftentimes on any project like this, if, we're not going to tell you to have a hearing, or not a hearing, have a meeting with the neighbors, but that'd sure help, and it would resolve some of this stuff going back and forth at the meeting. Okay.
so the existing house is gonna get demolished first before they even start this construction.
Is it going to what?
1549 is gonna get demolished first before they even start this construction?
Do you plan on tearing the house down before new construction? Okay, yes.
No, that's basically all I have. Sorry, thank you.
No, thank you. Anybody else? Yes.
Hi, I'm Jim Scanlon. I live at 2 Stonehill Terrace, directly behind the property. I appreciate Mr. Walsh's flexibility in the address change idea, his idea to be open to maybe not doing that. I'd just like to reiterate the inconvenience, to put it mildly, involved in an address change, times 4 houses. I understand the fire department's concern, but the fire department that address has been that address forever. I've been here 25 years, and it's always been that address. I don't think finding the place will be problematic. What would be problematic would be for, 4 houses to change every legal document, every deed, will, passport, driver's license, Say nothing of the initial mail snafus, you know, the 8, 9 people who still actually, you know, send Christmas cards. That's an enormous bureaucratic knot to untangle that will inconvenience at least 4 people for the sake of one piece of construction. But I say again, I very much appreciate Mr. Walsh's flexibility in willing to talk about it. But I did want to come here and just to express that concern. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else on this? Yes.
Hi, my name is Eileen Rose. My husband, Paul Walsh, and I are here tonight. We live at 8 Stonehill Terrace. And the first thing I want to show everyone here is a perfect square. It's actually 175 centimeters, so it's to scale of the 1 square piece of property in this whole 23 property complex. What I've also done is label this to show 1549 and to show Stonehill Terrace. And I can take this scale of your proposed home, because I've not received this new one, and I can place it on Stonehill Terrace, on a perfectly square piece of property. So I can't get it in my head, other than for real estate value appreciation, to be on a side street rather than a main street, why you don't simply face it on Washington Street, where it currently exists. So is there any real reason that you can offer to me why you want the front of the house on Stonehill Terrace rather than Washington Street?
So, Ms. Walsh, everything to the zoning board, not to the
sorry.
applicant. So is your
Wasn't
question?
aware of my first foray
No, that's
here.
fine, that's fine, we'll work with you.
So that's my question. I guess that's a question,
Yeah.
if you could ask the applicant, why the need on a perfectly square piece of property would one want to face this property onto Stonehill Terrace, other than the fact that a property value on a side street is likely much higher than property value on a main thoroughfare? I just have a very hard time. Now, I have firsthand knowledge of changing addresses. I grew up on a dead-end street in Dedham on a corner. And in the 1990s, with enhanced 911, even though our house was numbered 91 Tarbox Street, it faced Poplar Street. And that was a builder's decision back when my parents had the house built in the 50s. They didn't want a long walkway to the front door. And it always messed up people, I have to say. Over the years, people couldn't find our house, even though it was right there, but it was facing the wrong street. In the 1990s, with enhanced 911, my father was required by law to change his address from 91 Tarbox Street to 30 Poplar Street. And as Mr. Scanlon talked about all the things that had to happen, you know, in today's day and age, your license, your real ID, your TSA, all have to match. Your passport, you know, again, wills, deeds, medical proxies. We have one of our neighbors who has a serious health issue at 6 Stonehill Terrace. Requires medical assistance quite often by police and fire. And these people have lived here 55 years. And in an emergency, if you're calling 911, are you going to remember that you're 10 Stonehill Terrace now? Or are you going to remember that you're 6 Stonehill Terrace in a moment of panic? The amount of things that would be required of these 4 families is outrageous. And again, having done it for my elderly dad many years ago, it's not simple. It's very tedious. It's rather selfish that you would simply come here and think that we can so easily renumber our homes. So I implore you, and again, I'm going to repeat what the engineer stated in his letter. He so astutely saw that in all the paperwork on the website, not once did it say in the narrative that they were going to change the front of this home. It was just in the plan. And I just do feel it's rather selfish, and I've only been in the neighborhood for 3 years, But to think that we were going to have to, just after we moved 3 years ago and all the changes we had to make for moving from Milton, that we're going to have to do it again because someone wants the front of their house on a perfectly square lot to face Stonehill rather than Washington Street. I'm at a loss. And again, perfectly square. The only square property in the whole complex. So I leave here tonight asking you to vote no as currently proposed, even if, from what I'm hearing but not seeing, that they're going to move one of the doors onto Stonehill Terrace. This still has to be a Stonehill Terrace address, because by Enhanced 911, it's where your front door is. So is one of these going to be at 1549 Washington Street, and one of these still going to be on Stonehill Terrace? And if so, we're going to have to change our addresses, because we currently are on the south side 2, 4, 6, and 8. Unless you can give it 00, which I don't think you can, we're going to have to change our addresses. So I'm just in awe, and I don't understand why the front door has to be on Stonehill Terrace.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I'm going to ask the applicant that question.
Appreciate it.
Is there a reason why it has to be on Stonehill?
No, so my original plan, I didn't know anything about the addresses. The reason I moved the driveways over to Stonehill Terrace was for safety. When you're people are going 45 miles an hour down Washington Street, so when you're backing out on Washington Street, it's a safety concern. When you're backing out onto Stonehill Terrace, it's obviously less of a concern. This address thing this concern was brought to me just on Thursday, and I don't want the neighbors to go through anything like that, and that's why under no circumstance do I want anybody to have to change their address. I'm just a developer coming through to, build a couple of condos. It's not what I want to do to anybody. That's why I do what I'm showing you tonight. I want to get back in touch with my engineer when he returns. Both doors will face Washington Street. I'll be able to keep one driveway onto Stonehill, and the other driveway would go onto Washington Street, and I feel like nobody should really be impacted.
Okay. And we're going to see a new set of plans. So the set of plans we have now is going to be revised?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Anybody else want to speak? Yes.
I'm Elwood Willie, and I live at 6 Stonehill Terrace. At the moment, I don't need help. Thank you, Ryan. But I've lived at 6 Stonehill Terrace for 41 years, and I like number 6. So I think what I'm hearing, and I'm encouraged, Mr. Walsh seems to be flexible, and that there's probably a way to work it out so we don't have to change our numbers. But I certainly would be opposed to the project if, in fact, we have to change all the numbers up and down the street. The town engineer used the word hardship, and I think that really, if you really think it through, I'd have to go to 2 law firms. Attorneys have billable hours. We've all seen the bills. So that's what I'm concerned about.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Anybody else? Mr. O'Leary, how are you?
Good evening, John O'Leary, 776 Washington Street. My question's on a slightly different subject. This is a 2-family in RA where it's normally not allowed. My question is, according to my research on the street listings, there's only been 1 family living in the dwelling for the last 2 years. I may have incorrect information, but in that case, the 2-family has been abandoned, and it cannot go back to being a 2-family in Residence A. So perhaps the neighbors can shed light on whether it is, in fact, it is still being used as a 2-family or not. But my brief research in the street listing shows only 1 residence, 1 set of residents living at that address for the last 2 years. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Walsh, do you want to address that?
Yeah, It is a two-family. It's zoned a two-family. It's pre-existing non-conforming. It's a two-family as far as the town's concerned. It's been rented out for, the previous owner, Joseph Proul, it's been rented out for 30-plus years, as far as I know, so both families. So, I mean, it is.
But within the past 2 years, has it been used as a two-family house?
Yes.
Okay.
It's currently being used as a two-family house.
And
One of the current residents has been there, I believe, for 30 years. And the most recent tenant has left, and a new one is in there, so.
so you probably know this, and your council definitely knows this. If there's a break of 2 years where it's not being used as the non-conforming use, you lose that, so.
There's been no break, not even a month.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Do you have canceled checks, utility bills to prove that that's the case, and not just the word of the seller?
I could drum up quite a bit of documentation, yes.
So Mr. O'Leary brought up the point about within the last 2 years. That's probably something that would be helpful, seeing that it's been brought up, that you provide documentation that you still have, going back for the last 2 years, that it has been used as a two-family.
Mr. Chair.
Leases could do that.
What's that?
I think the building commissioner, oh, sorry, Dave.
No, sorry. I was just saying leases. Could cover that.
I was just saying, the building commissioner, I think I have some information on that.
Okay.
Yeah, so speaking to a pre-existing non-conforming two-family, on a whole, has anybody living there, it's also been taxed as a two-family with the assessors. But when it comes to two families and pre-existing non-conformities in a structure like this, the abandonment of 2 years only falls under commercial buildings, under Bjorklund v. Edgartown. You have to actually show that you abandoned the property, so they would literally have to have removed the separation of the independent living units, combine them as one, as either a stairs in the front, remove the exits from the exterior to turn it into a physical single-family home under 1 and 2 family for it to be not considered a two-family. If it was still, even if there was only one tenant on the first floor and the second floor remained emptied, it still keeps its protection under Bjorklund that it's still a two-family. The original owner would actually have to physically abandon it and turn it into a single family for the abandonment to go away.
Okay, that's Bjorklund versus Edgartown?
Edgartown.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's, thank you. Dave, did you have a comment?
No.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else from the audience on this?
Yes, Mrs. Young?
Yes.
My name is Janice Young. I have lived at the property at 19 Sandy Valley Drive for 56 years. We were one of the first people to move in. We are probably the oldest residing residents there at this point. It has always been a two-family house. The land was sold by the Stonis family to John Murphy. He made Old Farm Estates, which had 23 house lots. It was an existing two-family back then in 1967 when Old Farm Estates, Sandy Valley Drive, and Stonehill Terrace were built. There has always been someone up and downstairs in that apartment. It's probably, in the time that we've been there, it's probably had 5 different owners. But it is a continuous use. No one ever abandoned that. And the only reason that I'm here, because it really doesn't affect me, I live on Sandy Valley, but I do feel for my neighbors in Stonehill Terrace if they have to change their house numbers. I applaud Mr. Walsh for taking a hard look at this. I happened to see the letter from the engineer, Baldoff, and I did see it was dated on Thursday. So I understand that he hasn't been able to make changes. But we're looking forward to a lovely home on there. The farmhouse has seen its better days. We wish him well, but we do not want to do it at the expense of the neighbors. And I think he's willing to work, and I think we're willing to work with him. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Anybody else? So what we're going to do is, we're going to continue this hearing, and that's common in something like this, and the applicant's going to get together a new set of plans. You also have some work to do with another special permit for the drainage, for the impervious coverage on the lot. It's going to be, you're proposing over 15%. Okay. So how long do you think it's going to take you to get those, you're going to have to renotice? I'm thinking you're looking out until probably the May meeting.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for an abutters list. I can have the plan ready as early as tomorrow, and then I'll submit.
Okay. What about the special permit for the 15% impervious coverage?
That's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
They're-
Okay, so that's going to kick you out, because it has to be noticed and everything, so that's going to put it out until May 15th. Do you want to?
That's fine. I'm in no rush.
Okay. Okay. So, board members, any other questions or comments?
I just had a question. I noticed that the application was just for 9.3, and is there any other areas that they should have applied? I looked at 9.1C2, which addresses increasing sizes of non-conforming buildings. Is that something that they aren't doing or should be applying for?
Nine 9.1C2.
9.1C2, basically to encourage change in nonconformity situations to a greater compliance with the provisions of the bylaw and to reduce the degree of nonconformity.
So, they're not reducing
No, they're not. That's what
Yeah.
I'm saying. Am I interpreting that wrong?
I thought they were increasing the setback off of Washington Street. Does that
So
become conforming?
It's under 9.3 because obviously it's a pre-existing non-conforming use within, so it's a two-family use within a one-family district. They can increase the floor area by 50%, and so I think that's what they're proposing. So that's why it falls under 9.3 rather than 9.1C2. Because of the
They don't
incre-
have to satisfy 9.1C2 as well? I just, if
So
someone could explain
that's-
that.
Encourage change in non-conforming situations towards greater compliance with the provisions of this bylaw and reduce degrees of non-conformity. Well, I guess not, because they're keeping the two-family use. So the non-conforming nature is the use, not really a dimensional.
Not dimensional?
Not dimensional, no.
And I had one more.
Yeah.
And the next one, 9.1C3, which addresses expansion shall not substantially be more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing building. And they're talking about expansion. No?
I can speak to this, Mr. Chairman. So the provisions under section 9.1, all of them basically outline what Chapter 9 details is, what the whole Chapter 9 is trying to obtain is, if we have a non-existing, pre-existing, non-conforming building, what is the town looking for? So some of the ideas is not to expand it dramatically, that's detrimental to the neighbourhood. That's where it jumps up to section 9.3. C, where the applicant is applying to expand it, you can only go to 50% by special permit. If you were to go to 100%, you'd need a variance. The section at the beginning is just saying what the town is looking for, would like to see done. So if he's expanding it, again, it's to encourage change in non-conforming situations. So if the applicant wanted to build a very big single-family home, it could be even twice the size of what he's proposing now. And that would be conforming. So he could go again, I don't know the exact size of the lot, but say it's a 10,000 square foot lot. He could actually go to build a 10,000 square foot house on that lot by right. This section is just saying you have a non-conforming structure. If you are going to make it conforming or try and expand it, to make it not detrimental to the neighbourhood as a whole. So he's taking it to the building itself right now. Where it is placed, he could build onto it through this section, but he'd be building with a non-conforming building and a non-conforming use. By moving it to where he's looking to place it, he's only going for a non-conform expansion of a non-conforming use. He's making the building more conforming. But this first section is just what it's the different ways you can go to make it more conforming or show that it's not going to be detrimental to the neighbourhood as a whole. That makes sense.
Got it.
Yeah, okay, so on the section 3 that they've applied under, when you look at C, the alteration to not exceed more than 50%,
Yes.
can you explain what is included in that 50%?
So right now, there's a house on the structure that's a 2-story, 2-family house. I believe that the applicant is applying for the same footprint plus 50% of that to what he's doing now, which is 2 single condos, single floor, with 2 garages. As for the house on its own, so he's going basically 150% more than what's there, and this allows you to increase the non-conformity use by up to 50%. If he exceeds the 50%, then it's a variance. It's a lot more hardship to get, and that's the one that would have more trouble getting, and would, in my opinion, be more detrimental to the neighbourhood.
Okay, so the term open ground area is on the existing plan that we're going to see a new plan, but I'm sure that some of these things are going to still be there. 2 covered porches and 2 covered patios, are they, and the garages, are they considered part of the equation to come up with the 50%?
No, they're not. So the 50% comes from, say, the first floor, second floor of the house, and basement area that can be used as habitable space minus your mechanical rooms. So in the application, the applicant has taken the floor area of first floor, second floor, basement area, given us a total, and then goes 50% larger than that, and that's the most you can go to. The open space area would pertain to, which we should have come, if you have a parking lot or paved area, so take something that's not conforming, the Cedar House on 1A, that has a parking lot. That's open space can be taken in because that use is pertaining to the restaurant. So when you go to expand 50% more than that, you are including the driveways, the parking lot for that use. When it comes to residential use, we don't take the driveways into account and expand it 50%, because if you did take something like that, you could have a 3-wide driveway and then take that land, make 1 driveway, car driveway, and build a massive house on top of that. So you're only allowed to take the interior space of the house. You cannot take driveways, uncovered porches, and mechanical rooms in the basement, or an unfinished attic that cannot be habited. You cannot take that area towards the gross area of the new house.
Does that answer your question? Okay, anything else? So, we're going to keep this hearing open, and we will continue it until May 15th at 7 o'clock here at Town Hall at the request of the applicant, at which point we expect to have a new set of plans. Those will be filed long before the hearing, so if people want to take a look at them, they should, Patrick, they'll be online?
Yep.
They'll be online, and you can get them at, there'll be a copy in the office upstairs. So, does somebody want to make a motion to continue case number 23-3 until 7 o'clock here at Town Hall to May 15th?
So moved.
Moved by Judy,
Second.
second by Drew. Any further discussion on continuing? All those in favor of continuing, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstained, so carried. Okay, so we're going to, hopefully we'll see you at the next hearing if you're here for this. Okay. Next, yeah, why don't we, let's take a 5-minute break, and we'll be back at quarter to 9.
I have ever encountered. It's absolutely useless, and the people don't know how to use it.
Case number 23-4. This is 8 Hoover Road. Notice is given that the Zoning Board of Appeals, Town of Walpole, will hold a public hearing in the main meeting room of the Town Hall on Monday, March 20th at 7 p.m. on the application of Paul Nee, case number 23-4, with respect to property located at 8 Hoover Road, Walpole, Mass., in the General Residence Zoning District. Application is for a special permit under Section 94A of the zoning bylaws in order to construct a rear deck to a dwelling that is pre-existing, non-conforming building in regards to its rear setback. Okay. So is the applicant here for case number 23-4? Okay, you want to come forward?
Good evening, my name is Paul Mann from Eastwood Road. And I'm looking to put on a back deck. And that is the plan that you have in front of you.
So, the house is, the dwelling is a pre-existing non-conforming building. What is the current, does that show on this current setback? Yep. Okay, so your setback is right now 17.8 feet, is that correct? No.
No,
No, it's-
that's what it would be once the deck would be on. It's 29.8 at the moment.
It's 29.8?
Yes.
Yep, I see it, yep, okay. And with the deck, it would go down to 17.8?
That's correct.
Okay. So, you want to explain why you can't make this conforming?
I myself, I couldn't explain. I'm not, from what I understand, I guess it would be based on the setback, from what I understood, putting anything there may not necessarily work, I guess. I don't know. From what I've read, from what I was told. So it would be this or nothing, just stay the same and nothing would be added to the property.
So that,
I'm going to let Patrick help you out here.
So the applicant, it's a pre-existing non-conforming in terms of, I guess, structure. It doesn't conform to the dimensional regulations, particularly the rear setback. So if the applicant's already non-conforming as it relates to the rear setback, there's certain relief granted if he wishes to extend into that rear setback. So the proposal of a 12-by-6 deck obviously would decrease his already limited rear setback, but because of the non-conforming nature, that's why he's before the board to seek a special permit.
And
to
not
seek-
a variance?
Not a variance, no.
So, yeah, this would be asking for a variance if your house was,
If it complied.
If it complied.
Yep.
Which is sort of interesting. Okay. So, okay. You met with the building inspector and
Yes.
you couldn't get a building permit because
That's correct.
because of that? Okay.
Yes, correct.
Okay. Yeah, do you have a question?
Yeah, no, I guess I look at it and say, if your house had been 4 inches further to the street, you'd be asking for a variance to put a deck on, but where you're non-conforming, I don't see this deck as being detrimental. I think you still hold 17 feet, 8 inches to the back, and
Right.
17 feet off the other neighbor. If you swung the deck around to the side, and not that I'm proposing any changes to your plan, but you would be at that point, maybe setting yourself up for, being a burden to your neighbor. Whereas I think you're kind of trying to position it the best you can, and I don't have a problem with the plan.
Anybody else, Jimmy?
How close does your rear neighbor, do they have anything in their yard that would be?
They do not, no.
It's
It's just
pretty open
just a
backyard back
driveway
there.
with a big,
Yeah.
they've got some large space back there, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And their house is further up towards the street?
The house is further up toward Main
Main
Street,
Street? Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Yep, I have no problems.
Is this an enclosed deck, or is it an open deck?
No, it'd be an open deck,
Open deck.
yeah,
And would remain an open deck?
yes.
I believe there's a letter of support from your neighbor as well.
I believe there is, yes, yes.
I can't put my finger on it, but I saw it on the digital file.
Anybody else have any questions or comments? So I actually find it interesting that by the luck that you're non-conforming, you don't have to apply for a variance, and yeah.
Yeah, I think the section 9.4A has an or between, provided that the enlargement or extension will not increase the non-conforming nature of the structure, or that such enlargement or the extension will not be more substantially detrimental to the neighborhood. So it is a kind of an interesting provision, but that's the way that it is drafted, yeah.
So, for this, is this a raised deck, or how high off the ground is it?
It's a raised deck. I'm not sure if, I'm off the top of my head, I'm not sure exactly how high it would be.
Is it like a one-story, I mean?
It's one story, yeah, it's one story. There's already now a landing with 3 or 4 steps up, it would be that same height.
It's not more than 4 feet off the ground.
Okay. Yeah, that 4 makes a difference, so. Dave?
You good with it?
Everybody good?
Yep.
Seems like you're in good shape, sir. So, we've got the plans. Do we have any construction plans? We have the plot plan, but do we have any construction plans?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Mr. Crowley, any construction plans for this yet? Yeah. No, 8. We're still on 8.
No, right now it's just a standard day.
Okay.
We've not even in the application right now.
Okay. Okay, but we do have a plot plan showing the setbacks. Hey. Everybody good? Okay. At this point, do you want to close the hearing? You probably.
Yes, we could close the hearing.
Okay. At the request of the applicant, could I have a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Moved by Judy, second by Drew. Any further discussion? And this is just to close the hearing. All those in favor of closing the hearing, please say aye.
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 Opposed, abstained, so carried. Okay. Could I have a motion, first up, anybody have any other discussion on this? We good? Could I have a motion to approve the plans for 8 Hoover Road, showing the proposed 12 by 16 deck to the rear of the property, standard conditions, and based on the plan dated 12/28/22 by James Toomey.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Second. Second by Drew. Any other conditions that people want on this? Okay. Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, so carried. Very good. Okay. Next one, your next door neighbor. 4 Hoover Road. This is, notice is hereby given that the Board of Appeals, Town of Walpole, will hold a public hearing in the main meeting room, Town Hall, on Monday, March 20th at 7 PM on the application of Scott Sardina, case number 23-5, with respect to property located at 4 Hoover Road within the general residence zoning district. Application is for a special permit under Section 94A of the Walpole zoning bylaws in order to construct a rear deck to a dwelling that is pre-existing non-conforming building in regards to its rear setback. Okay, is that applicant here? I understand your situation is a little different.
Hi, how are you? My name is Andrew Green. This is Scott Sardina. Thank you for having us. What happened was, I want to say it was in June of last year. I was hired by Lisa Smith to erect a deck. We did not pull a permit for it. It is a, I don't know if you guys have the plans for it, but it's a 10.5 by 12 foot deck. I have drawings for it and pictures of what it looks like. The deck is currently completed. And we've been going through the process, trying to follow all the rules and do whatever you guys need us to do.
Okay, so the deck's already built?
It is, yeah. I have, if you'd like.
Yeah, sure. And Mr. Crowley, does this deck meets the engineering standards and safety requirements?
As of now, not right now. We've done no inspections on it. So when we left a notice on the door a while ago when we saw the deck in process, and then we sent out a violation because no one got to us. And there was a violation posted for no permits and work done without permits. They filed the permit with us and gave us a plot plan, which we noticed then it was in violation of our zoning code. So it was paused until they get permission from ye. Once, if ye approve it, then they'll have to call for all the inspections and we reactivate the permit. It's on hold right now because it's in violation.
Okay.
So no one's inspected anything out there.
And the way to resolve this is to get them in compliance, and then you'll inspect it and make sure it's done correctly, and any shortcomings will be corrected?
Yeah, so once, if it gets approved by the board tonight, then that will reactivate the permit, and then they'll need to call for inspections. They're gonna have to do some work to show us how it was done properly, so like, in case of the footings, any new footings that were installed, they're gonna have to dig them back down to the ground to make sure we can inspect them properly, make sure that we can see all the structure, all the bracing, everything's done properly, so it all depends on how much access we can get to it. They might be okay as it is, or they might have to remove some stuff for us to see.
Okay. So this will bring it into compliance?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Board members, any questions?
Yeah. So, sorry, could you speak, who owns?
This
your-
is Scott.
I'm the contractor.
Yeah.
Okay. And you own it?
We work together on the project.
Okay.
He's my project manager.
Gotcha.
Is your question who the owner is?
No.
Okay. Is the owner here tonight?
So, can you speak to why you're pulling the permit now and you didn't pull it when you first started the work?
At the time, we did speak about pulling permits, and it was an option to do so, and the customer opted not to, and, we still went along with the project, even though we should have, so that's where
Here we are.
why we're trying to, get everything through now.
Okay.
Do you do much work in Walpole?
Um,
Okay. We'll get this resolved. Okay. Judy?
I'm good, just fix it.
I'm good. Dave? Yeah, I'm okay. Okay. I know you're not happy.
No, I understand sometimes as a contractor, I mean, I'm in the trades myself, homeowners direct you one way, but as the contractor, you have licenses and you went before the state to apply for those licenses and you understand what the state requires you to do. So I think as one tradesperson to another, that's a little shameful, but I understand the predicament sometimes when you price out a job and whatever the conditions are that you do. But I'm sure once the enforcement agent officer inspects the work, it will probably be up to par at the end of the day and protect the homeowner. That's the number one reason why we pull permits.
Absolutely.
Okay. So, the way we can resolve this for everybody is to, first off, we can close the hearing. Do you want to close the hearing? But first, I'm sorry, is there anybody from the public that wants to speak on this one? Okay. Do you want to close the hearing?
Yes.
Okay. At the request of the applicant, could we have a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Moved by Judy,
Second?
second by Bob. Any further discussion on closing the hearing? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, so carried. Okay, now, so we got a engineered plan. Somebody make a motion with the, to approve the deck, and what are the dimensions of this deck?
10 by 12.
10 by 12 deck at 4 Hoover Road, based on the plans dated 12/28/2022, and with standard conditions. Does anybody want to add anything else? Okay.
Motion to approve?
Okay. Well, motion made by Judy,
Second?
second by Bob. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? So carried. Okay. Good luck resolving that.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. Moving down the list. Next case we have tonight is 657 North Street. Is the applicant here for 657 North Street? Okay.
Hello.
Yep, I'm gonna just read the public notice. Are you Chris? Christopher? Okay. Notice is hereby given that the Zoning Board of Appeals, Town of Walpole, will hold a public hearing in the main meeting room on Monday, March 20th at 7 PM on the application from Christopher Gibson, case number 23-6, with respect to property located at 650 North Street, Walpole, Mass, in the Rural Zoning District. Application is for a special permit under section 5B3I of the Walpole zoning bylaws in order to construct an accessory structure/building to be used as a customer furniture making space to be operated by the homeowner. All those are invited and encouraged to review the plans. We have a couple pieces of correspondence. We have comments from the Conservation Review. The application will require filing with the Conservation Commission prior to clearing and/or construction. Have you filed with the Conservation?
So I spoke with Conservation, and I had John Glossa come out actually this morning, and he marked out where the wetlands were, and they're I'm going to be building with at least 100 feet away from them. So Conservation said I'm good to go as of today.
Okay.
I don't know if that.
Did they have a hearing, or?
They didn't have a hearing. I haven't spoke to Landis on it, but I could follow up.
She emailed. I have an email from today, if that's helpful. But
Well, one of the things, you can continue. The only thing that would be at risk is if you need to do something with Conservation and we approve this, and things change on your plan, then you're gonna have to come back to us.
meaning what we like the
So-
size.
So if, say, the Conservation says, oh, there's wetlands here, and you can't build your building where you want it to be, and the zoning board already approved it, Then you'd have to come back. But
So I
yours-
think it's all set, though.
You
As
think
of-
it's all set?
I got an email from Landis today, and she said, you're good to go. She spoke with John Glossa and cleared the concern of wetlands being near the building.
I'll just say, without the official, an email isn't official.
Right, I
But
know.
if you, all I'm saying is, we'll do our part, but
Okay, I feel confident
Okay.
as of, after
Okay.
today's discussion, so.
we also have a letter from the town engineer. He's reviewed the plans, and the proposed curb cut is far wider than normally allowed for residential use. We suggest that this be modified and narrowed. However, we will show some flexibility as the proposed is a business use. On the other curb cut, one of the other curb cuts should be closed, and curb cut permit and street opening permit will be required from the DPW engineering for a new curb cut and removal. So we might have some work over there. We'll talk about that. From the fire department, if the comments from Deputy Chief Paul Barry, if the request is approved, building plans should be submitted through the building department for review, and the use and storage of supplies and equipment shall comply with mass laws for a comprehensive fire safety code. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then finally, from some
Board of
comments.
Health.
What's that?
That's the Board of Health.
Board of Health, okay. Septic, an updated septic plan, do you have that?
So that, again, I spoke with, I guess it was a misunderstanding about the type of foundation that this structure would have. It was initially thought to be a full basement, meaning the setbacks from the septic would be much further, but I guess it was cleared up that it's just gonna be a slab, so now the setbacks are appropriate from the.
So if a slab foundation, I believe it only needs to be 10 feet from the septic, or the setback needs to only be 10 feet from the septic system.
Okay. And the planning board has no comments. So, I'm just looking at the plan, I do see the septic, it looks like you're 11 feet back from the slab is
Correct.
11 feet back, okay. So, why don't you walk us through what you're proposing and what your plan is here?
Okay, so my wife and I have been at 657 North Street for about 7 years now, love the area, involved in the community. I work full-time as a physician assistant. Woodworking's been a hobby for many years. Past couple of years, I started doing furniture for friends and family. So I started a business, Sunny Rock Woodworks, working out of my basement, which has been difficult with bulkhead access, doing some bigger projects. And we don't actually have a garage. So that was something we talked about doing at some point. So this project would kind of serve two purposes. One, act as a detached garage, and also give me a ground level workshop space, so I can just work in a safer, larger environment. And this is not a full-time, this is part-time. I make about one piece of furniture a month at most, and I have no employees, and I won't have anyone coming to the building. I'm not gonna be selling anything out of the building. It's basically a larger workshop.
So that clarifies, so you don't expect to have customers coming and, is there gonna be a sign out front or anything?
Doesn't have to be, if I mean.
That would be a separate application.
Okay, then no.
You don't want to come back to us again for the sign?
Just allow for an accessory sign.
Accessory, in residential. Okay. The plans that you show, what's the construction material for this two-car garage?
It would be 2x6 construction with like board and batten siding, and then metal roof with truss structure for the roof.
And 40 by 20 construction on a slab, right?
40, I think 40 by 30 is.
40 by 30, what did I say?
20.
Oh, yeah, 40 by 30.
skinny.
Okay, yep.
On slab, yes.
Okay. Board members, any questions?
So, one, I want to applaud your business. I think I saw something about donating back to the town of Walpole, which is great with some of your proceeds.
Thank you.
But two is, how close does your abutter to the back side of this wood shop that you got going on here?
So I'm 30 feet, at least 30 feet from the property line, and then the house is then probably another, I don't know how, he's probably another 30 feet from his property line, right? So I would guesstimate at least 60 feet. I didn't measure it out.
So my only thought would be working late at night, got a big order coming in, ripsaw going, you got the doors open.
Right.
And the neighbors going, geez, why did they let this wood shop start right next to my house? So
Right,
if you can
obviously.
answer to that, that'd be great.
Sure, I mean, I understand that, obviously don't want to upset the neighbors. If you can see the building, I didn't even put any windows on that side facing his house for that reason, and I would not, it's gonna be insulated, I'm gonna have it, do everything I can to not be using loud equipment at odd hours. And I have good relations with the neighbors, I don't expect to do anything unreasonable.
Sounds good, that's all I had, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So you're going to have looks like you're going to have a garage door on the left elevation, so facing your house is also going to be a garage door?
That's correct.
But there's no driveway that goes to that, is that correct?
Correct. For the time being, I'm not that concerned about parking cars in it. It's going to be mainly a shop with maybe a gravel access to one of the bays for a single car, but I don't plan to put in a paved driveway or even do the curb cuts for the time being. That was kind of a potential idea. So it's basically a structure, function as a shop that will also have the potential of being used for a garage.
Any other questions from board members? Okay, anybody from the audience? Yes, sir.
Chuck Ead, 7 Buckboard Drive, 40-plus year resident of Walpole, 13 years on Conservation Commission. What you need is a determination of applicability, a negative determination of applicability from Conservation Commission before you can proceed with that. I think is what you're looking for. And Glasser is doesn't tell what that board does. He's just a private engineer, as we all know. I had a few questions. I've only met with Chris once when we were out on a walk, and then we got the notice around the neighborhood, so there were some concerned neighbors giving me some calls and things, so I thought I'd come down. I'm not quite clear. What is the reason he has to come before you? He's got all his setbacks and everything. Is this because it's a business in a
Correct.
rural zone?
Yeah, so anything that's a home occupancy use within a residential district would require a special permit through the zoning board.
So now, does that use carry with that? Like, if he left and moved and somebody came in, could that then be used for a different type of business? Like a used car dealership, which is what we all don't want to see.
So on that, it could not be used for a used car dealership because that requires a license. But could somebody use it for, repairing their own cars in there? Yes.
As you could, it's your own home, right? Yeah. But that brings me up to some other things too. He's answered how much is going to be brought in, how much equipment and things like that. I don't think that's going to be too big a problem. Are there specific hours of operation? I know on conservation, we can put a lot of things into an order of conditions. Do you put in specific hours of operation, or how does that work around the business? How do I make a call that 2 in the morning at 95 decibels is too much, and I call the police because the order says that's what it is, or how does that work?
So,
I can answer that, Mr. Chairman.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, so basically, this individual's asking for a business license in his residential home, so if it's a commercial use at a residential property, so it does fall back under the standard rules, regulations of any commercial business in town, that it's 7 in the morning till 8 at night, and he falls back under our general bylaws for noise ordinance as well. And to the previous question of if the special permit is specific to the owner, because he's been given a cabinet shop making company, that if he moves on, then any new owner can't just start any regular business in there. They'd have to come back and reapply. This is going to be specific to the owner of the record.
Great, thanks. I have a few more, you might be back. Will all the parking for this be off-street? Will that all be done in front of his garage, or will there be more parking on the street?
Okay. So he does show proposed gravel driveway in the plan, but in a public hearing, that's what's nice. We can ask the applicant. Mr. Gibson, where will the parking?
So this is going to be as low impact as possible. Again, I don't want to upset the neighbors. I don't want it to look like a business. It's just going to, and those markings where the driveways are, I don't intend to do anything with that at the moment. Just the one, not the curb cut, but perhaps the one coming along my property line into the, I'll put maybe some gravel there, but there'll be no parking, there'll be no additional traffic. I won't have customers, I'm not gonna have employees. It's really the same setup now, our 2 cars, with no additional traffic.
Hopefully those are in the garage.
Well, we'll see. We'll see if there's room.
So just for clarification though, which of the curb cuts are you not planning to do? Looks like there are 3 potentially here.
So this one I am not. These 2 are present.
Okay.
These are the 2 present. This was a potential proposed
Okay.
idea that I don't intend to do anything with at the moment.
Okay, so just the 2 existing.
Correct.
Which one?
The bottom 2 are existing?
This is proposed.
This one, okay. Exactly that, okay.
Okay, continue, please.
Okay, sure. So there's two more things. One is just the driving on North Street. When you come up to Buckboard, you're coming around a curb. One way, you're coming around a curb the other way. When people whip around into Buckboard Drive, if there's more cars there or something like that or anything, that becomes a dangerous situation. We already have to be really careful coming in and out of Buckboard because, as we all know, North Street is the 495 of North Walpole, and so it's just again, if there's a lot of cars or big trucks or anything loading in there, we've already had some real close calls. Landscapers come and park their stuff there, and people come around the corner, and there's been a few accidents already. The other thing is just in respect to Conservation Commission, and my first love is there is water that comes down North Street. It flips over to the other side of North Street, directly across from Buckboard Drive, and that gets down to Geraldine's house. So not the house next to you, but the further one down, that gets plumbed behind you down there. That water then goes down to the pond that used to be on Sunny Rock Farm. That pond, which is now a private lot, that I think has 7 acres of wetlands there as well, which then comes out, onto, what's the? Sunny Rock. It comes out to Sunny Rock, where we get all the ice on the street, and it flows over the road in the winter. So his lot is about 3 or 4 feet deep, or lower, I think, where you're gonna build it. I took a look. So you're gonna be doing some fill, I imagine, right? I'm supposed to talk to you, I'm sorry. Will there be additional fill, I guess, is because this all interacts, and if he goes to conservation, I can talk there too, I suppose, but.
We can ask, do you expect to have it filled? Are you going to be filling this to?
I'm not planning to. Again, as little altercation to I want to alter the area as little as possible. So I've even put the building in a place where I have to remove the least amount of trees. I haven't actually gone into depth with the concrete company about how much grading needs to be done, but the spot is quite flat. It's not going to need to be changed.
It's down a couple of feet from the current street right there, because are you at the crest of the hill there? It's sort of directly across from Joe's
it does
driveway?
drop a little bit, right, so.
Yeah, so you're gonna have to fill up to come to grade, or you're your water's gonna come into your driveway and into your garage from the street, you know what I mean?
So that driveway isn't going to happen.
It's not gonna happen.
That was like threw it on there as a
Maybe.
potential idea, but
Okay.
I'm not
So
planning
you
to
probably
do that.
wouldn't, so you'd probably keep it down, then, you wouldn't have to bring the garage
I would
up
hope
in the
so.
air.
I wasn't intending to fill or raise anything.
And I heard some of the other things, is there like limits of fill that are in this type of thing, or? how does
We
that
spent a
work?
lot, yeah, 100,
Talked a lot about that.
100 cubic feet.
Yeah, I know.
Sounds like an incidental use to
Fill and more fill.
I get a teaspoonful, you know, that's it.
No,
I
it's-
know-
so
I know
it's-
conservation
it's-
has tons of rules for that.
Right,
so-
but it's, to answer the question, it's 100 cubic meter, 100 cubic yards per year, and I can't imagine that you're coming close to,
But not for an accessory structure.
Truckloads, isn't it? That's a lot.
Right.
right,
Yeah.
yeah. But it's not for an accessory structure, so that's not even an issue.
And it's a slab, right? It's not a,
Yeah, he doesn't have a basement, so, I mean, we're not worried about the basement flooding or something. so.
Yeah, you still gotta put in footings and stuff though, right, but, yeah.
Anything else?
That was it, that was all I had, I just. wanted to
Okay,
bring-
so,
Thank you.
so one of the things that we can do is, not that you are talking about any parking or anything like that, but a condition we would put on is no street parking. Okay. Board members, anything? Yes, Judy?
I just had a question. Chris, is this more of a hobby for you than a business?
Exactly.
Okay.
I only had to
I-
file as a business because I was doing a few projects. I had to collect tax, and it was for so it's really a hobby that
Yep.
very small business. So it seemed awkward to go through this whole process, but I wanted to do it properly, and this is where we are. So,
Okay. Thank you.
all right.
Anything else? Okay. Okay, and are you tying into, are you gonna have water out there?
There doesn't have to be. I guess that would depend on what's involved in that.
What about, I guess we're just, you're not changing the septic or anything on this?
No.
Okay, okay, that's fine. Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I just for the record, I guess part of this use, there's also 5 supplemental findings that the board will need to make within the decision, just for reference and for the record. One is, the use is clearly secondary to the use of the premises for dwelling purposes. 2, no trading in merchandise is regularly conducted except for the sale of products made by the resident himself or of parts or other items customarily maintained in connection with and incidental to its performance. 3, such use will not have a material adverse effect on the value of land and buildings in the neighborhood. 4, the external appearance and general aspect of the building so used is in conformity with the residential character of the neighborhood. And 5, there's no outside display of goods or products, storage of materials or equipment, or any other outward evidence that the premises is being utilized for any purpose other than residential, except for an accessory sign as herein provided, or hereinafter provided. So.
Okay. So, and, anybody else have anything? Yeah, Judy?
On the rear, looks like it's penciled in. Is there going to be a door and 2 windows? I thought it was penciled in. Is it?
Oh, yeah, that was, the exact layout of that backside that's roughly what it will be.
Okay.
Anybody else? Okay. At this time, do you want to close the hearing?
Yes, sir.
Okay. At the request of the applicant, could we have a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Moved by Judy. Second. Drew. All those in favor of, any further discussion on closing the hearing? All those in favor of closing, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, so carried. Okay. Could we have a motion to approve the special permit for, thank you, 657 North Street for construction of an accessory building to be used as a custom furniture making space operated by the homeowner based on the plans, the plot plan dated November 17th, 2022, and the construction plans for 657 North Street dated 1/17/2023, I think.
Yeah, that's the answer.
Anybody else?
Yeah, that's correct.
What? That's it?
I would just add that the revision date on those is February 23rd, 2023.
Thank you, Drew. Yeah, I didn't see that. The revision date on the plot plan is, as you said, February 23rd, 2023. As far as conditions, any curb cut needs to be approved by the DPW. We don't have to put anything in about operating hours because the town building enforcement officer just told us it's 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. That's throughout the town. This is, one condition is that this is specific to a woodworking shop. That should be a condition. And no street parking. Anything else? Okay, so that's the, does somebody want to make that motion?
One thing?
Go on, have another.
Just for
No,
your-
no, we closed the hearing.
I'm just saying we need a determination of not applicable conservation.
It's up
So
to them.
that's actually on the applicant, and that's what I explained earlier, but
Then it should be noted that it has to be done. Right?
Not as part of this.
what's that?
I said not as part of not part of this decision. So
So, and that's why I explained earlier that he's going at this at his own risk, and, but that's,
He'd have to redo it if he had a problem.
if he has to,
That's right.
if he has to move the building, yes, he would have to come back. That's why we cite the actual plan with the revision date, so, okay. Okay, so that's the motion before us.
So moved.
Moved by Judy.
Second.
Second by Drew. Any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, so carried. Okay, good luck with your woodworking.
Thank you.
Okay, next is John, case number 23-7, 11 Winthrop Street.
Good evening. For the record, I'm Scott Henderson of Henderson Consulting. I'm the project civil engineer representing the applicant. Here, John Rooney is in the back corner there. It's the homeowner and applicant. And also here with us tonight is Jim Toomey, the project surveyor, if there are any questions related to the plan. This is a fairly straightforward application under 12.3C for lot coverage in Area 1 of the Water Resource Protection Overlay District, exceeding 15% of impervious lot coverage. The charge under that is to address that additional impervious area through implementing stormwater best management practices to ensure that that additional impervious area doesn't negate the recharge of groundwater within that water protection aquifer. I presume that the board has seen this before. We have a fairly straightforward set of dry wells to capture runoff from the entirety of the house roof. You can see that shown on the plan. There's one in the front yard, one in the rear yard, and it's sized to capture 1 inch of runoff at least. That's a static calculation, so you just say for X amount of square feet on the roof, you capture 1 inch of rainfall. In practice, those systems will drain as they fill up, so the actual captured amount of runoff far exceeds that 1 inch. Operationally in a storm, I submitted calculations to the town engineer, Carl Balduff. He has submitted a letter to you. I believe this system can handle up to 4 inches of rainfall before there's any overflow for the entire roof. So, can I answer any questions?
Okay, let's, we've got some correspondence. So, fire department, no comments at this time. From the town engineer, Carl Baldoff, he states they've reviewed the plans and says, "We have verified the proposed roof infiltration system is more than correctly sized to mitigate the increase in impervious area. We suggest the following conditions. The engineering department should be notified by the installer prior to installation of the infiltration system for permitting and inspection. And an as-built should show the installed infiltration systems. Not related to the special permit, but of concern to this department is the proximity to a utility pole of the proposed driveway. We would suggest that the proposed driveway be either narrowed, skewed, or shifted to leave a 3 to 4 foot clearance. We note that the proposed driveway will require a curb cut permit from the engineering department. The Board of Health has no objections or concerns. Planning Board has no comments at this time. And are there any other comments? Okay. Do you want to address that bit about the curb cut and the telephone pole?
Yeah, Carl aptly noted that we are subject to curb cut permitting requirements. This project does include some adjustments to an existing curb cut and the construction of a new one. Under that set of standards, we'd submit a plan to him for that. We'll adjust that 20-foot wide curb cut on the right-hand side of the site so that it has more of a buffer from that utility pole. The purpose of showing two 20-foot curb cuts, that's the maximum allowed, so we wanted to show to you the greatest amount of impervious area so that any adjustment we make from this plan will be a reduction in impervious area, and thus the drainage system will still function as intended and approved, presumably.
Okay. So on this this house, it's a small house there, and now it's going to have an addition going out on both sides. Is that correct?
Correct. And a deck expansion in the back as well. Those additional building components, as far as we understand, comply with underlying zoning. So.
So on the right-hand side, it looks like the proposed addition is now 11.4 feet from the property line.
Yeah, I'll attempt to answer that, but I might punt to Jim, the surveyor, and also to, yeah, same Jim. Because this isn't a non-conforming parcel with respect to frontage, I believe there is a allowable reduction in side yard setback per 5 feet in lack of frontage, so this lacks 25 feet of frontage to comply. And thus that side setback is 10 feet, and it's proposed at 11.4. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay. And I will note there are other existing nonconformities with regard to front setback. None of the proposed work increases those nonconformities. So we've reviewed this with the building department before coming through, so our understanding is it's...
So Jim, we've got a small lot with a small house.
Yes.
That's what's there now. And now we're gonna have a small lot with a significantly bigger house, and it's closer to the sidelines on both sides.
So the zoning in Walpole goes on footprint, where other towns go on FAR, which is the floor area ratio. It goes on, if you have 10,000 square foot lot in Walpole, you're allowed to go to 25% if wasn't an Area 1 recharge. So you're allowed a 25,000 square foot house as a footprint. But you can finish your basement, go second floor, go third floor, and basically put in a 10,000 square foot house in Walpole. In other towns, it goes with FAR, which is the floor area ratio, which is your living space. So if you're only allowed to go 25% of that, of your FAR, all you could put in this lot is a 2,500 square foot house, and that's it, as of right. Walpole allows you to go bigger, so he can expand to this size. In the normal area, he's in one Area 1 recharge, which means this is why he's in front of you asking for that expansion. And then Walpole under section 6C9 in all jurisdictions, GR, RA, RB, and rural. If you're lacking frontage, gives you exceptions in each. So again, this is an RB, he's allowed down to 10 feet. In rural and RA, you can come down to 15 feet. And in GR, you're allowed down to 6 feet if you're lacking in frontage.
Yeah.
It allows you, the zoning, the way it's written, allows you to get pretty close and build a big house in a very small lot. And again, the thing with just if this wasn't an Area 1 recharge, I think if you're 7 doors down, I'd have to drill check. They are out of that Area 1. They're actually in no recharge area. If this house was 7 doors down, we'd actually be issuing a permit for him tomorrow, because he'd be allowed to do it all as of right.
Because it's not in the aquifer,
Recharge
it's in
area.
the recharge area.
So you'd allow up to 40% coverage of your lot with everything between driveways, sheds, and the building itself.
Mr. Chairman, can I just ask a question while you're
Go ahead.
pondering?
Yeah.
This is the one time we didn't get any architectural renderings. Usually I find them interesting to look at, and I'm looking at an 8-foot leg off the back. And I'm just curious, do you have any? Does someone have some architectural renderings of this, what this house is going to look like? I know it's probably not for us to see, but...
We don't. So for this purpose, looking planned
I
down,
know, it's just,
yeah.
yeah, I
So,
know,
yeah,
it's
no,
just the-
unfortunately, we don't.
Okay.
No.
Well, sorry.
I'm done for now.
You might have a building
Yeah,
permit
yes.
application, right?
My question would be, your plans show 2 driveways, you got substantial additions going off each side. I mean, how are we to believe that without a floor plan, you're not proposing 2 families in this unit?
I mean, that would be a use violation,
Right.
you know, and so under the typical building permit application process, I believe Jim reviews, you know, the building and floor plans, and those would be required, because for that purpose, he probably has them, I just don't have them
Okay,
tonight.
sorry, yeah, I thought they weren't
Yeah, so-
available.
Just a question regarding, one of the criteria is that the engineering reports demonstrate compliance with the Massachusetts stormwater policy. And I think the thrust of that is that the runoff is no greater after you perform the project than the existing condition. And can you address that?
Generally, it's a little convoluted. Under stormwater management policies, single-family homes are fully exempted from any of those promulgated regulations. They're intended to be more, you know, for commercial properties, things like treatment, things like that. For this purpose, this set of standards is actually part of the Clean Water Act, right? So because we're in a groundwater well recharge area for a potable public well, it's about volume. You also don't want to pollute, so there are uses that are excluded in all these zones. Under that charge, it's a more static analysis. So if you take 1 inch of runoff for that area in excess of the 15% impervious coverage, so say you have 25%, you take that additional 10, multiply that by 1, and you put that volume in. So what I submitted is a stormwater report that shows performance in certain storms, which is something that you typically see. In this case, up to a 10-year return period storm, which is a little over 4 inches of rain, this system doesn't overflow. It's a substantial amount of water. And so the charge there being that, you know, we don't have a depleted aquifer for that potable well. All the runoff that enters these systems is from roofs, so it's clean. It's not subject to the sediment that you get in pavement and things like that. So it simplifies and makes the longevity more predictable.
Okay, thanks.
So, you know, looks like the issue that we're looking at here is just as it states in the application, that this is about the 15% impervious coverage.
What, a system like this, what's the lifespan for something like that?
Hard to predict. I can't say that these systems have been in implementation for that long. It's a typical dry well system if it's not taken care of and you never let your, never clean your gutters or anything like that, like debris can accumulate. I see remediated systems in old houses that are 50 years old that still work. I've seen some that are 10 years old that don't. Typically, they don't last when pavement runoff is sent to them because you have sanding and salting and debris and things like that. Roof runoff's generally considered clean. So I'd expect this to last 30, 40 years, as long as there's nothing egregiously done that shouldn't be done. There's an operation and maintenance plan that's included with this for the homeowner. You don't drive over these because they're not under pavement. And just make sure that they function, that you clean your gutters and things like that. So short answer is it's hard to predict. But this is standard industry practice. This is not unusual.
So for the board members, really what we're looking at is the required 15% impervious coverage, and the applicant wants to go to 25%. And the question, and I've actually got a concern with something that you said, because we're not just looking at today, but once this is built, they're never gonna have to come back for a new system.
Yeah, that's understood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if it only lasts X amount of time, well, what happens after that? And it's our drinking water system, and that's the only, well, we've got two of them, 2 aquifers in town, so that raises a concern.
The one thing I'll reiterate, not to interrupt you, you asked an engineer for an absolute answer on something that's unpredictable.
Yeah.
These are things we do all the time. You've seen these around town everywhere. Every commercial parking lot, every sizable house, everything near conservation jurisdiction requires these. This is the best management practice, the BMP. This is the best BMP we have available for these type of things. So if you have faith in an engineer that puts my liability on the line stamping it, town engineer that does the same in reviewing it, you know, these are the systems that are in place and the reason why this exists. So
my thought process is, you know, trust engineers, and also, like, don't get yourself into a situation where you need it in the first place. And one of the things would be that if we, basically, the reason why you're here is because you're trying to build a massive, you know, a much bigger house on the lot. You could have stayed with the original size house, could have gone up, but instead, this is getting much bigger, really building out to the max on, pretty much the max on both sides. And, you know, and the way you're remediating it is through the engineering, but what I'm saying is, well, another way to remediate it is not to have as much impervious coverage and stay within the bylaw at 15%.
I will say the underlying zoning in this district, if we're talking about that, allows 40% coverage. Again, this is strictly an attempt to ensure that
the
there's
underlying zoning for
this district, yeah, for that residential district.
But because it's in the groundwater protection district.
Exactly. So I will say that the intent here in these rules is to ensure that you have the ability to look at and ensure that there is some practice put in place to prevent somebody from paving the entirety of their lot. Things like that. This is not, it's not out of character, I think, with some of the neighborhood. I believe this has been in practice in other parts of town. Town engineer was willing to give me, other plans with similar drywall systems for similar coverages exceeding that 15% as a template for me to look at what the expectations are. So this is not an uncommon thing that you haven't seen before.
Yeah, we've seen it before.
So. Okay. And I will say 25% lot coverage is not, I see a wide practice in different disciplines, but you see a lot more coverage in other types of uses and things like that, so.
There was a lot less before this started. It was 16.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Okay. Anybody from the public? Yes. Just come on up.
Kevin Plunkett, Pilot's Way. Question on the frontage. What is the frontage of the property?
It looks like the frontage is... What is it?
100, so that gives you
100 feet.
5 feet, so you get
25. It's 125 for RB zoning, so he's lacking 25 feet.
Yeah, so you get for every 5 feet, you get 1 foot.
Bonus.
Okay. The other question I have, or comment I have, is on I don't know what the average rainfall is for Walpole, but...
42 inches.
Say again?
42 inches per year.
Per year, okay. But as far as a deluge, you said you went back 10 years. Norwood Hospital went under with 6 inches of rain, and that was just less than 3 years ago. So 4 inches of rain is not at the limit of what we've seen recently. So that's just a comment for the board. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, anybody else? Okay. Do you want to close the hearing? Oh, first up, do people have any other questions?
I tend to agree with John about if you didn't have to be here, if you could have tucked it away, made it a little tighter.
Oh, I'm sorry?
I just agreed with John as to you're here because you're asking to go above and beyond the 15% I think in a considerable way.
What I'm creating is single-level living. I'm
Excuse me.
disabled.
Could you just identify yourself for the record?
I'm sorry?
Could you just identify yourself for the record?
Oh, John Rooney, 11 Winthrop Street. I became disabled 9 years ago. And single floor.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay. So, I'll just say, Patrick, this takes special permit, it's majority?
Supermajority.
Supermajority, so 4 out of 5?
Yep.
Okay. I've got concerns that we're taking something that, this is just me, that it's a small house on a small lot and building it out to the max and trying to resolve the fact that it's being built out to the max by an engineering solution that is not going to last forever, yet the house will last a very, very long time. And it's protecting the town's water supply in the Minebrook Aquifer. And I think that if we start doing this at this one and a lot of them, it's going to end up being it's going to be a problem. There's a reason why we have the 15%, and it was not to have, ways to get around it. The idea was that 15% was reasonable in this zoning district. So that's my comment. Okay, anybody else? Okay. That being said, you want to close?
Can I speak with my client?
Those were just my comments, by the way. Because there's no wetland issues nearby. But I will ask that before we close it. Just to make sure that's clear.
My uncle was a track and field coach.
Oh, really?
50
Oh, my God.
years.
Where did he start?
He was the head of, used to go there every summer for basketball camp.
Oh, yeah. It's a great school.
Yeah.
We loved the avenue behind
It is
Arthur
fun.
Ave. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
It was fun. I get this, the Chitel market has been there for like, well, back then it was 100-something years. Just, they made. Oh, Mrs. Boston. He knew all about our area because this kid went to BC. Yeah, I've been to Lewis's. Best bakeries though.
There's a nice, very nice school.
I played football.
Oh, wow. And at 10. They might have changed over.
Yeah, they did.
It was like way back when.
I forget. They played Holy Cross and
We might have crossed paths. My uncle's name was Tom Dewey.
English? I'll ask him.
Mostly known for the track and field.
Go for the next one.
Are the people for 672 Common Street here? Okay.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, we're good.
You had a crowd with you. Where'd they go?
To bed.
Okay. I just said, where'd they go? I know there was a few people out there.
Jim and Scott are with me too, so.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, I saw the plans, yeah.
Yeah, I have some of my neighbors were here, you know.
behalf of the applicant, we'd like to withdraw the application without prejudice if the board is willing to accept that.
Okay. Sure. So what we'll do is, we'll just vote on that. Could we have a motion to withdraw case number 23-7 for 11 Winthrop Street at the request of the applicant, and it's withdrawn without prejudice?
So moved.
Moved by Judy, second by Drew. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, so carried. Okay. Next, we have, next case is case number 23-8, 672 Common Street, special permit under section 12.3C of the Walpole zoning bylaws. Is the applicant here?
For the record, Scott Anderson, Henderson Consulting, project civil engineer, here representing the applicant, Richard Quinn, who's behind me, again, James Toomey, project surveyor. This is a similar but slightly different project. This is a proposed series of additions to an existing single-family home in Area 1 of the Water Resource Protection Overlay District. The current lot coverage on this parcel is 18.3%, and there are two small one-story additions and a front porch being proposed onto this existing home. That generates an impervious lot coverage of a little over 22%. And so again, to mitigate for that, the practice is to provide roof recharge for the entirety of the proposed house roof. On this particular lot, 15% lot coverage represents about 2,800 square feet, and the proposed coverage exceeds that by about 1,400 square feet. The existing site is in excess by about 3%, and to mitigate for that, the proposed roof recharge will capture runoff from about 2,500 square feet. So we're exceeding that 15% by a little over 1,400. We're going beyond that by another 1,100 square feet and capturing a significant amount of runoff from the entirety of the house roof, that area. In this case, we're capturing about 1 1/4 inches of runoff from the entire roof without consideration for the infiltration. Again, this will handle in excess of a 10-year storm. That's a storm that returns statistically only once every 10 years. So this is similar to the last one. However, the proposed additions don't require any sort of zoning relief. They're not subject to any sort of, different setbacks that result from the lot area and whatnot. This house is very much in line with what's in the neighborhood. So similar review from the town engineer, and no other comments as far as I received by the board.
We'll read the comments. We have comments from Paul Barry, Deputy Chief. No comments to offer at this time. We have comments from the Planning Board. The Planning Board comments, no Planning Board comments at this time. Board of Health has no objections or concerns. So with the, obviously, existing house there, there's already there's no porch on the house right now. This new plan has a proposed porch, and that's going to increase. That adds to the water, the impervious area. Proposed addition to the left-hand side of the house, 20 by 14.4. 14.4 or 16 feet. And
the back study would be an office.
Oh, yeah. and
The
then
projection
also-
off the back
right,
is,
Another proposed addition on the backside, one-story addition. It's going to be 168 square feet.
That's currently a deck.
That's a deck that will now be part of the house.
Yes.
With the foundation, just with the foundation, or is it going to be built up like the deck?
There'll be footings.
There'll be
No
footings?
foundation.
Okay. Let's, now that we're all looking at the plans, can you walk us through the numbers again with, I'm just looking for the proposed, right now, proposed and existing is 18.3%?
Correct. That's a little over 3,400 square feet of impervious. That chart on the bottom left is going to give you, I think, most of what you're about to ask for. The proposed is 22.8% coverage.
And just on that point, just so I understand it correctly, it's currently non-conforming with the 15% requirement?
Correct.
You're already over it, okay.
Yeah, I'd venture to say that a good number of the homes in these districts exceed that, so.
I'm sorry, Bob, your point is that it's at 18.3 right now?
Correct, and the requirement under zoning is 15, so it's, presumably legally non-conforming, in that the 15% requirement came in after construction of the house.
Yeah.
Well, actually, was there an addition, was there a addition put on the right hand of this house at one point?
Yeah, so my wife and I bought the house from her parents back in 2010, and we put an in-law suite on for them, off to the right side. There's a mudroom, and then a bedroom, bathroom, living room, and a kitchen. That was done between 2010 and 2012.
So 2010 addition? Okay.
Correct.
I know we've got the building inspector, you had permits for that addition?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Only because I'm wondering why that didn't trigger a,
No idea.
okay, great. But I'm sure it's Common Street, everybody goes by it. I'm sure you had the permits for it.
Not hiding
I
anything,
don't
no.
question that. But I'm wondering why that didn't trigger the impervious at that point. Or maybe it did. Drew, anything?
What sort of maintenance is required for a system like this?
Just clean your gutters.
So I get my gutters cleaned twice a year by Nyden. They do the front and the back.
Okay, there's inspection ports, right?
Yes.
What are they for?
If there appears to be a drainage issue, say, you see a detail in the bottom left-hand corner for the downspouts that have a Y overflow. If you see that that's surcharging and it's not a particularly heavy rainstorm, it's an indicator that maybe the system's not draining properly. The inspection port allows me to go out there to the homeowner to contact somebody, presumably the design engineer or another engineer. We go out and we open those up and we see if it's draining properly.
So it's not required for any annual inspections or anything?
You don't have any regulations that require that. That could be conditioned. That's something that if you're subject to a notice of intent and order of conditions under the Conservation Commission, say, they have those requirements. I can't say people follow them, but that's something you can check. A lot of times, I always go out and check my systems at least once in a heavy rainfall event the first time that it happens, because I want to know that
know that it's working correctly.
Yeah, and as part of the inspections, I think the town engineer, Carl, mentioned again to have that inspected upon installation. That's a key to see that you've excavated and that the hole exposes, proper soil. It's not compacted, that it's good material, that it's the intended material to drain into, and then they inspect the system as it's backfilled as well. So you put in these chambers, clean crushed stone, and then filter fabric over it so sediment doesn't migrate into this. And again, I don't want to make it seem like, I don't expect these to operate for a long period of time. I'm just not going to say they last forever, because nothing does. But, with proper maintenance, presumably they could last forever.
And nowhere on the drawings that you submitted does it provide the information required for the maintenance of the system to last a lifetime? I don't know anything about cleaning out gutters or anything like that.
I can add that to the plans. There should be a small stormwater report submitted with this. I'd have to look again. I don't have a copy of that with me, but I have a digital.
Okay.
You can condition an operation and maintenance plan if you'd like. We do that regularly if you'd like that on file. Give me 2 seconds.
Judy?
I just had a question.
Sorry, I just wanted to answer that one thing. So as part of this submission package, there should be a stormwater report. I don't know if you all got copies, hard copies of that, or if that was just the digital that was forwarded to Carl.
We didn't print out full copies because it was 80 pages.
Yeah, it's long. So it's a full analysis with hydrographs and whatnot. At the back of that, there's a noted post-construction operation and maintenance plan. Includes guidance on when things should be inspected, how that should be done, and then manufacturer specifications for that specific system so that you know exactly how to get into it and see it. So there is an O&M plan on record as part of this application.
Okay.
I just had a question, and it isn't related to your stormwater, I'm sorry, but on the top of the page, it's the existing square footage of the lot is 18,750, where required is 20,000. Is there a reason why there's no application for like the non-conforming section of the bylaw where they're adding to something that's pre-existing non-conforming?
Yeah, so this is a pre-existing non-conforming, so the house is conforming, but the lot itself is a non-conforming lot, but it's in pre-existing. So as long as they don't create any new non-conformities, majority of lots in this town are not conforming lots.
Okay. Thank you.
Is that, sorry to ask another question along those lines, but is that the case also with regard to lot coverage requirements? In the sense that the current condition is non-conforming, and normally we would, if it was a structure that was non-conforming, we would go under section 9, but in this case it's lot coverage.
Yeah, it's lot coverage because if they had previously applied for this, I've been looking through our file and it just shows from back in 2010 that a permit was issued, so I don't think they were ever made come for exceeding the lot coverage. So technically it's not non-conforming, but if they had done that, or if you're exceeding the non-conformity and then you're asking to expand it, you can come under section 9 for that. I think the lot coverage is the tricky area because he's in, so the zoning for an RB is 40% coverage. Because he's in area 1, it triggers back down to 15. So the house could have been existing, that it meets the coverage of the lot, but doesn't meet the zoning under the aquifer. So you're asking for a special permit under the aquifer, not actually under the zoning of the lot, which requires a 40% coverage. The special permit is, we have it in chapter 12, specifically for if you exceed the lot coverage because of the aquifer. That's what the special permit's for. If this was a regular lot, they wouldn't need this, but if they wanted to go over the 40% coverage, it'd actually be a variance under the zoning.
Okay, thanks.
No, I'm just running some of the numbers and percentages. It's interesting that you're, if you did not have the proposed porch on the front, would that reduce you down to not, not having a requirement for this?
It would still exceed.
Still exceed? Okay.
Yeah, as you noted, the lot existing, impervious lot coverage is non-conforming. So anything in excess of what's there now is more non-conforming, so.
So on the all impervious, is that taken into consideration the driveway? Is that part of it?
Correct.
Yeah, okay, that's.
Everything.
Uh,
So there's two coverages too. I mean, there's a plot plan there that shows zoning. There's building coverage, which is just the building footprint, and that's unrelated to this. So when I'm speaking, it's impervious coverage. It's all inclusive.
Impervious coverage is, it's.
When I'm speaking, when I'm just using the word coverage, if I said that at any point in time, I'm implying impervious coverage, because that's the key
So the
component.
impervious
to the
coverage that you're talking about is
Everything.
all the roof area and the
driveway and the shed, correct. Yeah.
Anything else? Are there any neighbors to speak on this?
There were, they left. They were here.
Yeah, they were.
They're gone.
A lot of my concerns from the last one are still here on this one.
Yeah, and just looking at the requirements for the special permit under 12C, or 12.3C, I guess it is. It says we cannot grant the special permits unless we find that such expansion shall not be substantially more detrimental to the water supply than the existing use. And it strikes me that the supply is not really an issue here because they're capturing all of the runoff to the additional impervious area so that the recharge rate is sort of being maintained. The others, I'm not so sure that they necessarily are relevant in terms of storage of liquid hazardous materials. You're not planning any of that.
No, none of that. Those are, specifically, I have this as 12.3C5. I don't know if you can read that section. I don't have it in front of me. Yeah.
Right. I was looking at C1, the second sentence in that.
Again, these regulations, and they're promulgated in every town through the state, and every town puts together, and you use the same frameworks. This 15% is pretty much everywhere.
Yep.
Really just to keep an eye on what's happening. Not necessarily to presuppose it, not allowing it.
Anybody else on the board? You have people doing calculations?
Yeah, I'm thinking. I know 15% is, but it's non-conforming, so you're already 3% over what we would like to see.
Yeah, and so what
now,
just below the lot coverage table there,
Mhm.
right, it has, if the 15% was honored, which it isn't now, but if it was, your maximum coverage would be 2,813 square feet. The proposed is 4,299, therefore it exceeds that 15% by right by 1,453 square feet. the drainage system needs to deal with 1,400 square feet. The drainage system is designed to handle 2,500 square feet. So we are exceeding. So I heard Mr. Fitzgerald, I think you said something along the lines of maintaining that recharge. We're far exceeding what's happening now, so it's an improvement. So we're not just mitigating for the new, we're providing excess infiltration. If it rains 3 inches across this roof, not a drop of it will go anywhere but into the ground from the roof.
Judy?
I'm looking backwards to a case that just withdrew without prejudice, and this, like you said, a minute ago, this is back at the same table, trying to make the same decision.
And I'm trying to see how this is different.
It's not.
Where I think it had to do with the lot coverage in the other one, the total lot coverage, and the increase from 16% to whatever was going up to for lot coverage. This one, it still has the same thing. That's why I was looking at the porch, and we're not going to sit here and design a project, but it already doesn't comply. And at the end of the day, will this be better? Will this be better for the water supply, which is right on the other side of Common Street, through the neighborhood back there? And I actually think that it will be better because the water's going to be directed from the roof underground, but it still raises concerns. Other board members?
I mean, I hear the concerns about the, combined size of the structures on the total impervious area. But I think if we're focusing on the criteria here, it seems to me that the question is this going to be detrimental to the water supply than the existing condition? Substantially more detrimental than the existing condition. And the purpose is to require recharge at least equal to or greater than, so that there is no reduction in the amount of water that's infiltrating into the groundwater, and therefore wouldn't affect the supply of water that's going into the ground and then traveling wherever it goes. The lot coverage with regard to structures is compliant. It's just the combination of the two that puts them over. But again, it seems to me that the amount of recharge in the stormwater report concluding that, and the engineering department concluding that it's sufficient amount of recharge, I think, I think the application meets the intent of the special permit requirement.
You use the term combination of the two. What do you?
The combination of the structures and then other impervious surfaces like the driveway.
The driveway.
Okay. Or the shed in the back. I guess there's a shed back there too.
Yeah, that's small. But, okay. Judy?
I'm learning. Go ahead.
What's that?
I'm learning. I'm listening.
Interestingly, we haven't had a whole lot of these cases.
No, we haven't as well.
And I guess one of the is this a sign of things to come where people can be doing this? So, okay. Dave, anything?
I would just say that I do think I sign and agree with the idea that the intent of having that percentage in the code isn't to prevent these from happening. It's probably, in my mind, put there as a measure to get a body to review it and make sure that anything that big, and additionally, properly handle the stormwater. I do think it is going to be a sign of things to come. I don't imagine it's going to go anywhere.
I like what you just said. In the public process, it gives people the chance to make sure that things are done correctly, that an engineer comes in and designs things appropriately so that it's not just, running off and it's not being handled correctly. So I think that what we see here is that the engineering does support that for the time being. So, okay.
I do have one more question.
Yeah, one
One
let me
quick
just
one.
throw this out to you guys.
Okay.
And if the driveway was not impervious, would that eliminate this issue?
I'd have to honestly,
And I'm not trying, we're not gonna redesign a driveway, but.
yeah, if you eliminated it or if it was totally pervious.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's not what we're talking about, though.
Yeah. Mr. Chair, I kind of just want to agree with Mr. Anderson's point. I mean, this section of the bylaw, an applicant is allowed to ask for a special permit from relief from this, so provided they can provide that information on where that adequate storage is provided. So I'd argue that if the engineer of our town engineer...
You don't need to argue anything.
I know, not argue anything. I don't know.
We can talk about
It's
Phil.
almost 11, so...
Is that what time it is? Oh, Lord. I should
Drew?
John, if I may just one more point, that is also why we have all of our different department heads review these projects and provide comments, and when they provide what I think to be feedback that it's satisfactory or in line with the intent and what they're trying to achieve by being the ones to enforce this, I find a lot of comfort in that, or I'm okay with it, I should say.
Judy?
Nope, not asking.
Okay.
I'm done. It won't matter.
Okay. Okay. Anything else? Because we're gonna ask the applicant if they want to close the hearing. Do you want to close the hearing?
Yes.
Okay. Could we have a motion at the request of the applicant to close the hearing?
So moved.
Moved by Judy,
Second?
second by Bob. Any further discussion on closing the hearing? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, so carried. Okay. Next. And this is a supermajority, so that means 4 out of 5 would have, minimum of 4 out of 5 would have to vote on this in the affirmative to have it passed. Okay. Could I have a motion to approve the special permit request under section 12(3)C of the zoning bylaws for 672 Common Street, based on the plans from Henderson Consulting Services dated February 15th, 2023, and the plot plan dated February 17th, 2023, with standard conditions. And anything, does anybody have anything else that they want to add?
I would just suggest the comments from town engineer
Yes.
about suggested conditions,
Yep.
1 and 2.
Town engineer had comments, which I noted earlier, I read them. Those comments were, engineering department should be notified by the installer prior to installation of permitting and inspection, and as-built should be shown in the install system. Okay. Anything else?
So moved.
So moved by Bob. Second by Drew. Any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Abstain? Okay, so carried.
Thank you.
Okay. It is, we do have some minutes to review, and did people have a chance to review them before? Because I don't want to sit here reviewing them now at this hour, but if people already reviewed them, we could vote on them, but only if people already reviewed.
I did.
Okay.
The one I was at.
Okay, did you have anything on that? Okay. Dave, you good? Bob, did you have a chance to review?
I didn't read the March 1st, but I have read the 15th.
Okay, you're good with that?
Yeah.
Okay. I read them both, I was good with both of them. So, could I have, for the minutes, could I have a motion to approve the minutes of February 15th and also for March 1st?
So moved.
Moved by Bob. Actually, let me break them apart, sorry. Could I have that was never seconded, so it doesn't matter. A motion to approve the minutes of February 15th.
So moved.
Moved by Bob, you were here, yep. And second by Dave. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And, okay. And then the other one, Bob, March 1st. Do we have a motion for to approve the minutes of March 1st? It has to be, Bob, thank you.
So moved, yeah.
Okay, Drew, it has to be second by Drew. And voting on this will just be the three members that were here. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, so carried. Okay. Good. Patrick, do you have anything else for us?
Yeah, nothing else.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Judy.
Second.
Second by
I'm not gonna
Dave.
wait for you to say it.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, good night, everybody.